Nobody knows anymore how we got here. We are at Hump Day in the middle of this week, in the middle of September, on the downward slide into October. I just don't know how it happens anymore. It feels like life is only taking place inside the studio. Everything else is just pure chaos. It only slows down when I get on the mic with you. George Brauchler with the George Show, 710 KNUS. Welcome to the show. The weather, you may have heard, and again, we disagree almost entirely with the weather we put out through the normal over-the-hour stuff. Isolated PM storms. There were some last night, too. It was interesting. Some places I got family members saying, hey, it's dumping rain out here. Where is it? What's happening out where you are? We're not even that far apart. I mean, you're talking 15, 20 miles, and, man, it's night and day in terms of the weather. But 80, then 82 tomorrow, then 78, stays in the 70s. Through Saturday and Sunday. Now, folks, here's the other change they've made so that you know that these folks are just guessing. Every single lightning bolt has been removed off of this pictogram, whereas yesterday there were several lightning bolts scattered throughout. But I can tell you, just getting up this morning, it is cooler. For the first time in months, I walked out to the car and I had to take the trash out, and I thought, I'm going to go get a jacket. I mean, it was just one of those mornings where I'm like, oh man, it's happening now. The change is happening. And I'm not talking about the change where you feel hot all the time. I'm talking about that other change. It is definitely cooler out there. And Billy, did you guys get hit with the rain at all yesterday?
Just a little bit, not much. No, I mean, it was a sprinkling. We had some the night before, which was better, which again, don't have to water the grass. But yeah, it is colder. It's cold. Yeah, it was cold this morning taking the trash out. Yeah. The dog had to help, so she ran out and had to make sure that everything was cool. And yeah,
and she corralled the trash.
It's something she gets very excited. She knows that it's trash day, and so it's her job to come outside and hang out with me for a second or two while I'm taking the trash out. And I don't understand why.
This is all leashless, right?
Like, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, not at all. Yeah. So she just comes out and hangs out in the front yard for a second or two and gets to sniff.
Surveys the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think she's looking for the bunnies, honestly. So that's what she's looking for.
Does she, when the bunnies show up, her instant reaction, I'm sure, is to kill them. But
yes, exactly.
but does she respond to commands like, please don't kill the bunnies?
Depends on how locked in. She has a very, very strong prey drive. Now that she's older, now that she's crested into 7 years, it's easier to get her to stop her from doing that.
Yeah.
When she was younger, no way. There's no way.
No?
And she stalked bunnies in a way I hadn't seen before. She's very, very methodical and fairly smart about it as well. When she was younger, during like the season with the baby bunnies, she'd catch one of those once every 3 weeks. And she is responsible. In fact, she got early this season, she got one in the backyard, and I didn't know it was out there, and she chased it and got it and killed it. So she's gotten squirrels, she's gotten birds before. Her prey instinct is really, really strong. And so it's hard. It's hard sometimes to get her to not go after. But she's good at not leaving the yard. So if the rabbit runs across the street and stuff, she knows not to go across the yard. Yeah,
disciplined.
Yeah,
that's disciplined.
That's more old age, honestly, because when she was younger, it wasn't disciplined.
7's old.
Now it's just it's more old age for her. Yeah, and she's got one of her her right rear leg. The knee has got a little bit of a problem. So,
buddy, I'm sorry to hear that, but
know.
Not enough for the trash.
Not at all.
Big plans for the day here include this.
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, as you know, after this, one of the bigwigs from National is here, and I presume they're going to be interviewing me for my exit from this show. So I can't think of any other reason why they'd come out.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure they give me a box. I just think they're like, listen, we'll just throw an extra $5 at you. Leave your stuff. Just please go right now. You can have the microphone sock.
Yeah, they'll give you the plastic bag from the grocery store, but they'll charge you 30 cents.
It's got food stains in it or something. So I'll have that. And then I get to have a great lunch with a dude where we get to talk about some criminal justice stuff. But one of the big things I'm focused on for today is the opening statements in that Elijah McClain case are going to happen this morning at 10:30. So about 30 minutes after we're on. And for folks that are interested, and you should be interested, this is a case that is not just another routine case, in my opinion. There are Aurora police officers who are in this case. There, as you know, the case was trifurcated. I don't know how else to describe it, but you have two officers on trial. There are going to be two paramedics on trial, and then another officer on trial. And this is the one with the two officers, Rodema and Rosenblatt. And it's interesting because this is a case that the initial district attorney, as you remember, said, and he's no longer the DA. He got term limited out. His name's Dave Young. I was going to say, don't confuse him with the state treasurer, but ain't nobody know who the state treasurer is. So, but Dave initially responded to the medical examiner's conclusion that he had no conclusion, that he couldn't say how this kid died. And I want to be clear about this. Kid's innocent. Kid did absolutely nothing wrong. Kid should be alive today. All those things are true, and none of it makes it a criminal case in and of itself. So, you had Dave saying, look, I can't win if you arm me with, I don't know what caused his death. That I can't win. There's just no reason to move forward. So he didn't. And then nothing happened for a long time, if you'll remember. And then all of a sudden, George Floyd happened. And after George Floyd happened, this thing caught fire. And I presume nudged along with some of the civil attorneys who made millions of dollars off of this case. And it became a big lightning bolt thing. Still, nothing happened until, you'll recall, a change.org petition reached several million. And then, as you know, that is the trigger for our governor to take action. And that's what he did. He then invoked a power that he has to appoint the attorney general on an individual criminal case, and he did. And he sent it off to Phil, who, as you know, has spent a career working in the criminal justice field, honing his skills to determine, how the law fits the facts and what juries would do and all that other stuff. And so he convened a grand jury. Well, there's always a standing grand jury. He took it to the grand jury, spent an inordinate amount of time getting two other experts. They went out and found two handpicked experts to change the opinions of the prior. One of them was a medical examiner of sorts who said, I disagree with the last conclusion and blah, blah, blah. They ended up getting the grand jury to indict. Well, those cases are going to trial now. They've spent since Friday. I presume Friday was jury questionnaire time, but they spent since Friday doing jury selection, opening statements at 10:30. I think a lot of it is predictable. I don't think all of it's predictable. And I think it's a big deal because you know, if you're the defense attorney on this case, you are worried that an Adams County jury is going to bring to the jury box a whole bunch of I hate cops animus. You're going to feel super sensitive to the death of this innocent kid. And the inclination is going to be to want to say something other than no harm, no foul. Let's hold someone accountable. But dang, man, this is a troubling case. From a prosecution standpoint, it is a very troubling case. I am impressed with the fact that the Attorney General recognizes this as the biggest trial he has ever or will ever handle. And that's why he has put himself right there at the tip of the spear, nowhere near the courtroom when it happens. I mean, what? I mean, dude, you're seeking to imprison police officers and paramedics for the death of a kid, and you're going to be somewhere else. Maybe he'll be getting a sensing session on what people think about Kroger and Albertson's merger somewhere in Montrose.
Yeah. And again, you and I disagree on the Elijah McClain case as far as criminality. And I understand that. And
well, I know you don't always have to be right.
It's not a matter of being right. It's just a matter of the interpretation of what happened and whether or not that rises to criminality. And I'm interested to see how the case is argued and how they,
me too,
and how they approach it. Because the fact, I mean, there is a fact, as you addressed, that without the choices made by the officers and the EMTs, Elijah is alive. And the problem that I have got in the beginning of the case is there really is no probable cause. There's no reason to stop and put their hands on McClain and to put him into chokeholds and to deal with him in the manner in which they did. And
therefore, they caused his death.
In part, yes, absolutely.
How?
Because did you not see the video?
I watched the video.
Yeah.
I read the report. I've done it all.
Yeah.
But I mean, even if they had, let's say they didn't have probable cause and they violated his rights in that way, that cannot get you to cause of death.
Then how did Elijah, in your opinion, how did Elijah McClain die?
I think Elijah McClain, based on what the medical examiner says, a series of events, a number of events.
And the series of events are?
Well, the series of events began with the police going hands-on with this kid and ended with the paramedics giving him a supercharged dose of ketamine, which is what the medical examiners ultimately conclude killed him.
Yeah. And yeah, so and they gave the ketamine. Why?
Because that's what they decided to do. I don't know.
Based on what information?
Well, I'm certain that it was the information that any paramedic would take in, both from what they saw and what they heard.
Yeah, and what they were told. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the non-medically trained individuals on scene diagnosed Elijah McClain as being on drugs, which was incorrect. And because of that, there were drugs that were administered to him. Yeah, that's a problem. Their choices and their misidentification, and this is an issue. And I'm sorry.
So hold on. Then that puts them at what level of culpability, in your opinion?
Not sure yet, but they absolutely
were they trying to kill him?
No, not at all.
Did they not care if they killed him?
Yes, they didn't care.
They didn't care if he died.
No, not at all.
Buddy, how can you say that? How can you point to anything and say they didn't care if he lived or died? Why call for paramedics?
Because of how they treated him and how he was, and how they restrained him, how they dealt with him before and afterwards. That's why I say they didn't care. That's
too much, man.
Well, I understand that. I understand that's your opinion, and this is my opinion. We disagree on it. But they showed absolute callousness when dealing with him. They showed complete disregard for him as an individual and for his life. Complete disregard for that. And that is shown by the fact that they went hands-on inside of 60 seconds. And that is ridiculous. There's nowhere in any sort of a training is that acceptable. And how they dealt with him.
That's not true either, man. That's not true that you can't go hands-on immediately.
Based on what situation? It's situational.
Yeah, that's right.
This situation did not call for that. There's nothing inside the situation that called for them to place their hands on him that quickly. Not a single thing in this entire thing. And that's the problem. And because of that, it leads to a series of decisions.
The clarity that a Monday morning quarterback has is we're able to look back and see all the facts they didn't have available. And so the mistakes that they made in their decisions seem amplified. Like they don't know that this kid is I don't know what it's not a disorder, but you know what I'm talking about. Whatever his thing is, that and he's this cat-loving, violent. They don't know any of that stuff. What they know is somebody called up and said, super suspicious dude walking around in the middle of the summer with a mask on
again
and a heavy coat. So it's not that they could ignore it. They had to respond, right?
Yeah.
So they show up on scene. They're like, this seems suspicious to us too. And I'm not telling you.
How? What seems suspicious about it? The kid is walking down the street. He has on a ski mask and he is holding a bag where he just went to a convenience store and purchased a drink.
They don't know that. They don't know that.
Yes, they do, because they can see him.
They can see him in a mask and a jacket. So you're telling me the cops should have taken the call and said, thanks for the tip. Nothing to see here. Mind your own business.
No, but when they contact him, they don't need to grab him inside of 60
seconds.
I'm
not telling you the response was 100% right. What I'm saying is this, because of all of these dynamics, these guys end up making these decisions, not because they don't care about him and they don't care if he dies or lives.
Their decisions were callous because they had made prejudged decisions before even interacting with him. And we even see that prejudice happening in the single phone call that went into 911. And the phone call was from an older man who saw a young black man in the neighborhood with a mask on, waving his hands, and thought it was suspicious. That call, though, identified that he did not see the guy doing anything illegal, nor did he see a weapon. So that is in that call. And the police show up and they treat him as if he has done something illegal. That is not okay.
That is not true. They treat him as if he's suspicious. That's what they treat him as.
No, they don't. You don't get to come out of the car and grab somebody just because they're suspicious inside of 60 seconds and place them into a chokehold.
I'm not telling you it was the right response.
This is what I'm telling you is their response is wrong. They prejudged the situation and made wrong decisions that led to his death.
That sounds like civil liability.
Absolutely civil liability.
Yeah, and that's been taken care of. This doesn't feel like criminal liability.
I can get to manslaughter on it. Absolutely. They made a decision and they made a direction and gave the EMT information that was incorrect. The EMTs made a decision based on incorrect information given to them by police.
So the EMTs aren't responsible for anything. Because when a cop shows up who they acknowledge is not medically trained, when a cop shows up and says, hey, this guy has cancer, and they shoot him full of whatever, then it's like, well, I just trusted the police because that's what we do when we're paramedics.
The EMTs also do have responsibility, but it doesn't absolve the police from their responsibility because they made a determination in how they dealt with him and what they did with him and how they got physical with him. And they made a determination on whether or not he was on drugs.
In your opinion, the paramedics giving him an over therapeutic, an extra therapeutic dose, that's on the cops.
No, it is shared responsibility. I outlined that.
But hang on.
It is shared responsibility.
Had the cops given the information they gave, which, by the way, I don't think rises to the level of recklessness because these guys are going to say, we've seen this before. This is what it is. So that's what we conveyed. That's not reckless, right? That may be wrong.
No, it is reckless. And the reason it's reckless is because if you go back and you look at the body cam, what they describe does not happen. They describe Elijah McClain having superhuman strength and responding in a way in which he is on drugs. That is not what you see in the video. They do not describe the interaction accurately. They don't. And they lead the paramedics to the wrong conclusion. The paramedics do have some responsibility, absolutely, but it is shared responsibility because some of their decisions are built on information that is incorrect. They are given by the officers.
But if they had engaged in the exact same behavior and the paramedics had given the appropriate dose of ketamine, given whatever misinformation they gave, that kid's still alive, then what?
Then we're probably looking at lesser criminal charges,
but not manslaughter, right?
No, because
that means that the paramedics' conduct is the intervening act that keeps them from being responsible for that death. It's an intervening, unforeseeable act. That's what gets them off of manslaughter. That's what gets them off of criminally negligent homicide. And what the AG is going to try to argue is it doesn't matter. They set things in motion and they're just on the hook for everything. It's this uninterrupted series of events over which it doesn't matter whether they have control or not, over which they're responsible for all of it.
That's a fair point.
That's
but it doesn't,
civil. That's civil liability.
That is a fair point, and I understand what you're saying about manslaughter, and I accept that. So maybe it's not manslaughter, but the idea that they don't have any criminal responsibility, I find hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe, that there is nothing inside the criminal code that says their actions didn't rise to any crime whatsoever involving Elijah's death.
I've never said that.
Nothing at all.
I've never said that.
Well,
but there are, first off,
but you want me to name the crime. I don't know what the list is. You have much more experience in that one.
I do.
But I disagree that they don't have any criminal responsibility.
Trying to put the death on them it to me doesn't make any sense given the fact that you have this intervening cause of the paramedics and them giving him this hypertherapeutic dose of ketamine.
Yeah, the only thing that I would look at that hypertherapeutic dose is the fact that they give the hypertherapeutic dose because of the information that was given to them by the police officers.
No,
that is why they did it.
That's not my understanding, man. They're not able to just give him any amount of ketamine simply because these guys describe him a certain way. There is a therapeutic use of ketamine for these circumstances. So even if the cops give them this information, sounds like they engaged in their own sort of malpractice. And you can't pin the results of malpractice on the people that brought the guy to the medicine. That's civil liability. That's not criminal liability. But to be clear, trying to put the death on them is really, really difficult. And I just think it's unwarranted, but that's not what Weiser's trying to do. Weiser's trying to send these guys to prison, and he's not going to use manslaughter to do it because that's a probation eligible charge. In fact, it's weird that they indicted on on manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide, which is a lesser included. No, nobody does that, but they did. They're trying to get them to prison on first-degree assault or second-degree assault. That's a mandatory 5 to 16. That's what this whole case is about. They're doing the death thing as the cherry on top, and to be able to tell the public and Elijah McClain's family, listen to what we did to try to avenge the death of your son. His goal is to incarcerate these police officers, which I find ironic since this is a guy that has never once supported increasing prison sentences for anybody, let alone mandatory prison sentences.
That's fair. But again, if he's going after the idea that they assaulted him and that created the harm, yes, and I could get to assault, absolutely, based on what you see and how they conducted themselves. Yes, absolutely. That is a much easier charge to get to. But I still, in my opinion, their decision-making and their prejudice and their assumptions that were wrong in part contributed to the death of Elijah McClain. Absolutely did.
Contributed. That is not the crime that they're charged with.
I understand, and I can see the point. That's fine. That is absolutely fine. But I don't absolve them of their role in the death of Elijah McClain
I'm not telling you these guys didn't do anything wrong. I think that's the thing is I'm not in a position of saying it's all one thing or the other. I'm just telling you this prosecution, we talk about politically motivated prosecution. This is a politically motivated prosecution. It is not a prosecution that existed at the time that the medical examiner came up with their conclusion. It's not one that was changed until a change.org petition convinced the governor to do it.
But the idea that the medical examiner comes back and goes, nope, don't know. Pardon? Excuse me?
Pardon
me? I understand that. I understand that. It doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean in that situation.
The difference between not okay and prosecutable is a Grand Canyon sometimes.
I get that. I get that. But the idea that the medical examiner could not determine a cause of death, to me, is ridiculous. That, to me, sounds like someone that is trying to cover up something else or just not allow other people to be charged. That, to me, sounds like someone not doing their job.
Even the AG's hand-picked, I went out and found the answer I want guy doesn't say the cops caused his death.
No,
they say it was the ketamine.
Yes, I understand that. But the reason the ketamine was administered at the level, in part, is because of the police. And that was my original point.
I'm telling you,
that's the issue, is the police, without any medical training, without any diagnosing ability at that point, gave the EMTs wrong information. And they gave them wrong information in part because of the prejudice they had when they started the call in the first place, because they got out of the car and within 60 seconds had their hands on him. And that is not okay, not based on what they were told.
I get it.
Not based on what they were told. The information they had did not rise to the level of going hands-on that quickly. They didn't listen to him. They put him into chokeholds. They said that he was fighting back and showed super strength. None of that is seen on any one of the videos. Their story wasn't solid. And we also have information for
I don't know how you show super strength on video.
I don't understand the question. I don't understand the
You
statement.
said, they said he was showing super strength. You said you can't see that on the video. I don't know how you show super strength on the video, short of lifting up a car.
They said that he was hard to deal with and hard to fight and control. None of that is seen in the video. You don't see them struggling with him at all. Where is the super strength? They don't struggle with him. They don't fight with him. I know. I've seen the video of the tape, and you've seen the tapes.
I've seen the video.
You don't see that in any way, shape, or form. Yet that is their statement. It's not accurate.
I just can't tell you what they were feeling as they were doing what they were doing because I'm not there. I can watch it and say, this is what I see you gaining control of this guy. I can't tell you how he's resisting. We just had that kid that got the officer got cleared of the shooting that robbed the liquor store. Remember that with all of his buddies, the 14-year-old, and he had that gun that maybe even he thought was real and all that. Well, what you can't see on the video is what the officer describes is he's trying to pull the gun out from under him.
Yes.
You can't see any of that.
I understand that.
But you take the dude at his word that it happened.
No, I understand that. But what I can see is that Elijah McClain nowhere in those videotapes demonstrates anything close to superhuman strength or anything close to the drug-addled brain or excited delirium that they claim. None of that is visible. I understand not being able to see the gun in the video at its other case, but I'm talking about the actions of McClain. Nothing on the videotape backs up the police statements about how he acted and what he did. None of it backs up with
I think our disagreement is not about whether or not these guys did something wrong and should be held liable. It's whether or not it rises to the level of a criminal prosecution. And I mean, looking at that indictment, man. I mean, that indictment, the only difference between the evidence that existed when Dave Young said, I can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, and not Phil, of course, he would never handle this, but someone in Phil's office going and getting an indictment was they went out and found hand-picked experts to say something different than the experts that initially reviewed the case. It's like, that's it? They don't have a new eyewitness. They don't have any new statements. They have nothing. That's it. They went and found hand-picked experts to say something different. And now it's like, that's it. And now we're going to go send you to prison. It's weird.
It's weird, but I still think they need to be held responsible for it. And I understand the civil side of it.
They have been held responsible for it. It's just somewhat. At what level?
Yeah, somewhat.
Believe me, I get it, man. Listen, I started this by saying I think Elijah McClain is innocent and should be alive and would be today. I still cling to that. But my analysis isn't something bad happened. Now somebody needs to be held accountable. That's just not how the system works. If that were true, a lot of people walking around free today would be in prison.
I understand. But the other part of that, on the other side of that, is that I disagree that we have a system where inside of law enforcement, they go, sometimes our law enforcement agents make bad decisions and people die. Deal with it.
But that's not what's happening here. That's not what's happening.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, yes, based on, because you just made the statement, the idea that going out and wanting to hold somebody accountable and responsible. And I would say that the system needs to hold these law enforcement officers accountable and responsible for the decisions that they made that resulted in the kid's death. That I
based
disagree.
On two handpicked experts years after the event happened.
No, based on what you see in the tape, based on the statements, based on what happened that night, based on internal investigation.
You think that Dave Young should have prosecuted them when he had the case?
I question the fact that he didn't. And again,
listen, had the medical examiner come out and said, I can tell you that whatever it is the officers did, chokehold or whatever, led to the death of this kid. Dave Young prosecutes those cops. I know Dave. That's just who Dave is.
I understand that. But again, we go back to the medical examiner who goes, no idea. Pardon me?
It wasn't no idea.
Yes,
that's not the way the report read. He's saying I can't tell you of these multiple factors that led to his death. Like he could give you multiple factors. He said, I can't tell you which one is the one solely responsible for this kid's death. That's a problem.
Yeah. The multiple factors that, strangely enough, all surround the actions taken by the police and the EMTs, but we can't possibly determine it. That's the thing that rubs me wrong. We have all this stuff that is surrounding this group of people. We have no idea how he died. No clue.
No, we have an idea.
I can't possibly make a determination.
We just can't say beyond a reasonable doubt they're on the hook for causing his death.
I know, but it's all. But we all agree that is the actions based on those two groups of individuals that led to the death. But we can't possibly figure it out. Sure. Okay. I'll play along.
Yeah, it feels a lot like there's two guys that are in a fisticuff outside of a bar. One dude punches the other guy. He backs up, keeps backing up, backs up into traffic, car hits and kills him. And now you want to accuse the dude that threw the punch of murder. And it's like, what?
No, because Elijah,
had he not thrown that punch, there would have been no.
No, that is a bad analogy, because inside of a fight, two people have to join it and have to agree to have the fight. Elijah McClain didn't
Let's not
agree
even
to
say
any
it's
of
a fight. Let's just say dude walks up and punches an innocent guy in the face. Same thing.
The issue is Elijah did not ask to participate in this.
It's irrelevant.
Yes, it is
relevant. Irrelevant.
No, yes, it is.
To his cause of death, it's irrelevant. Man.
Yes, it is. It is, because as you admitted, if it wasn't handled this way and if they didn't stop him, he'd be alive. It is relevant. It is relevant.
But for causation is civil. You can't.
I understand that.
Dude walks up to you, Billy, on the street and punches you in the face. You stagger around for a while. You wander into traffic, get hit by a car. That guy's not good for your murder.
Hang on. I disagree with that being an analogy. I don't think that I disagree that the police did something and then Elijah McClain happened to walk into the equivalency of traffic and then get hit and die. I disagree with that analogy.
The analogy is the intervening cause over which you can't stop the car. You couldn't have predicted the car.
Yes, you can predict the ketamine because these
not
people
the extra therapeutic a dose of it.
But if it wasn't a statement by the police saying that he was on drugs and in this excited delirium state, and that ketamine needed to be, and that they talked about ketamine being used. If they didn't have that, the ketamine may not have been used. And again, if they hadn't contacted him,
not. That sounds like beyond a reasonable doubt to you. May not.
No, hang on. I'm leaving open possibility. But you're saying
reasonable.
That there's no control by the police officers because he just randomly walked into traffic. No. The police officers had control because they made a determination that was wrong and gave that information to the EMTs. This is not the same thing. It is not Elijah McClain randomly walking into traffic. That's not what happened.
No, but that's I'm not saying he randomly walked into traffic.
It is. You're trying to say, yes,
Billy,
you're trying to say that
giving
the EMTs
you an intervening cause.
But the way that you're doing it is you're saying that it's some sort of random event that happened. It wasn't random in any way, shape, or form. It's an intervening cause,
whether it's random or not. It's an intervening cause. Had the paramedics done their jobs, these guys wouldn't be facing manslaughter, criminally negligent homicide because kid's still alive. Now what? Doesn't matter. Your point is they should still be on the hook for his death because the paramedics' malpractice is attributable to them.
If Elijah McClain is not dead, they're not on the hook for his death. But thank you very much.
No, but my point is, if the only thing that caused this kid's death was the extra application of ketamine beyond whatever the normal therapeutic amounts are, that's not on the cops.
That is not the only thing that caused his death, however.
I understand that is the linchpin.
That is the linchpin that you're hanging. Not according to the other medical examiner. We couldn't possibly determine because there were all these other things that happened.
I'm telling you about Phil's hand-picked medical examiner.
I understand that. But again, we have another report that you cited that talked about all these other causes. And again, the behavior and the choices made by the police officers contributed to his death. Yes. Now, again, I may not be able to get to manslaughter or something else reasonably. I understand that point, and I'll take that point. Fine. But I disagree that they are not criminally liable.
So someone asked the question here, Billy, does the 911 caller have criminal liability since he was the cause of the police contacting them?
No, because if you go back and listen to 911 call, he talks about a man being suspicious, but says he's not doing anything illegal, nor does he see a weapon.
He clearly calls because he wants the police to do something.
No, he's called because he's concerned, not because he wants the police to do something. He's not saying, hey, come over here and do this. He's just letting the police know about something. He's saying,
don't come over here and check it out. I'm just letting you know in case something bad happens.
Is he saying come over here because this guy's doing something bad at this point?
You don't call the police to just say, let me tell you something funny that happened in the neighborhood.
Gosh, so we're talking about an old man calling because he's afraid of a young black kid in his neighborhood. Gosh, wow. Super surprised there.
So he's on the hook too? I like the text. It makes some sense.
No, he's not on the hook because he was not involved in any of the decision-making that involved the contact of Elijah McClain. At all.
He was. His description in his phone call caused the cops to contact him. That was the desired result.
And then the cops have made decisions based on that information that were incorrect.
Boom.
They were absolutely
incorrect. Like the paramedics.
Yeah. And they were given it, but the paramedics were given information that was incorrect. The guy on the 911
call. But they took steps the cops couldn't have controlled.
But the 911 guy did not give them false information, did not give them misleading information. Did not sit there and say he was involved in any sort of a crime, did not say he had any sort of a weapon.
The decision to engage in malpractice, maybe it wasn't a decision. Maybe it was just negligence or recklessness. I don't know what to do, man. I mean, I don't know how you put that on the cops. What if they'd taken him to the hospital instead of the paramedics and the doctors did something stupid and they injected him with something that created an air bubble that caused a heart attack? Then you would say, well, he never would have gone to the hospital, but for the police. And therefore.
So sometimes when the police come and contact people, they die. And that's just what we're going to do.
No, not at all.
That's what happens.
No,
that's your argument. Is that sometimes they die.
That's not true. That's not my argument at all, man. You've gone to an extreme here that I have not put forward.
Too bad. It doesn't matter what they do and the decision making.
That's the same as me saying in Billy's world, every time something bad happens with the police, they're criminally liable. And you'd say, well, I'm not saying that.
we're gonna break a record here. This is fun.
We're not. We still have 3 minutes to break a record.
Step apart. We got to step aside. Yeah,
listen, when we come back, things will be far more lighthearted. When we come back, we have, of course, You Choose the News, followed by a little bit of a break, and then the Thorpe Report with our friend. He's right now on the phone talking some people off the ledge. It's Billy. We'll be back in just a second. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KUS. Let's get smarter on the local news. I imagine none of it will have to do with our last subject that we covered, but nonetheless, let's turn it over to the smart man, Billy.
Good morning, sir. Well, mostly sunny and warmer. Highs 81 today. Continued sunny and warm. High around 80 tomorrow. Mostly sunny, seasonal 79 on Friday. First day of fall is Saturday and going to be around 77
What?
degrees.
It is?
Yep. High of 78 on Sunday. Yeah. Now, a suspect in a shooting that killed one person and injured another Monday night was not supposed to have a gun. The Denver Police Department arrested Michael Jackson in connection with the fatal shooting in Denver's Uptown neighborhood. Police said the shooting happened around 9:30 p.m. near East 17th Avenue and North William Street. The first victim was a 51-year-old rideshare driver at the time, shot and crashed into a tree. Driver taken to the hospital where he died. 20-year-old passenger suffered minor injuries in the crash. Investigators don't think that Jackson knew the Uber driver or the passenger at the time. Passenger told police that the drive home was normal. The driver wasn't being erratic or anything else. A security guard who saw the crash, stopped to help, was also shot at the time. According to police, he was taken to the hospitals in critical condition. Jackson, though, was never supposed to have a gun because of a prior arrest. And he had signed an affidavit saying he did not have a firearm, and he lied.
Oh,
yeah.
What? That's so weird.
Yeah, so weird. Deputies are searching for a suspect after a man was shot while driving in Jefferson County on Tuesday afternoon. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office said the shooting happened just after 4 p.m. southbound Highway 285 near Sourdough Drive. Victim taken to the hospital, expected to survive. The Sheriff's Office said they believe the shooting was connected to road rage at the time. The deputies were in the area looking for a possible suspect and a car, but they have not arrested anybody yet. Larimer County Sheriff's Office said yesterday a man found dead on a trail at Horsetooth Reservoir earlier in the month was shot to death, but they did stop short of calling it a homicide. The 64-year-old of Fort Collins was found lying on Foothills Trail near Horsetooth Reservoir on September 10th around 10 o'clock in the morning. Autopsy done by Larimer County Coroner's Office found that he had been shot and his death was caused by a gunshot injury. Sheriff's Office noted Tuesday's manner of death was not determined so far to be suspicious. A man was found dead after a fire in a home in Grand County Monday night. Deputies said the 911 call to the fire came around 9:30 p.m. on Monday, happened on River Ranch Mobile Park on Tyler Avenue in Kremling. When firefighters arrived, the home was fully engulfed in flames. Inside, they found a man, and he was pronounced dead. Boulder police said a man drove through Central Park Tuesday morning and attempted to run over several people. Police say the driver narrowly missed hitting multiple people in the park at Broadway and Boulder Canyon Drive. No injuries were reported. Also, the Board of Douglas County Commissioners yesterday approved a 4% reduction in property value assessments for single-family residential property owners. The reduction recommendation was put forth by Douglas County Assessor Toby Damish. And the first of its kind mental health facility for Cherry Creek School students is on track to open in October. It's Traverse Academy. It's going to have intensive therapeutic support, a full range of educational programming, and the facility will be open for 50 students between the ages of 10 and 18. And finally, we have someone new in the race for congressional 3rd District here in Colorado. Pueblo Libertarian James Wiley said he's going to try and enter the race and deny Boebert another term. He said that he's doing this in part because the Silt Republican won't sign a pledge to adhere to the minor party's principles. Wiley told Colorado Politics that he was compelled to run because of Boebert's refusal to agree to terms released this summer by Colorado Libertarians as part of a deal struck with the Republicans to avoid potential spoiler candidates. You remember we talked to Dave Williams about the agreement?
Yeah. I didn't think that was the 3rd District, though. I thought that was the 8th.
Well, it's just in general. Dude just says that he evidently thinks that it's supposed to be statewide. And because Boebert refused to participate in that agreement, he is now running. So whether or not he's accurate, but that's the deal. That's all I got. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
The political stuff is real. That thing is really taking shape here. We could talk about nothing but the politics stuff all day, but we're not going to do that. Not yet, anyway. We're going to get into the good stuff here coming up. That's the You Choose the News. I hope we have enough time. Billy's just taken off the ears, so that tells me that he's going to try to do some wizardry with some of the timing. But stick around. We're going to get to the good stuff. It's the You Choose the News next on the George Brauchler Show, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Well, just as quickly as we can, we're going to try to get to the good stuff here. George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. It's time for You Choose the News.
Yes, sir. It is that time of the morning where we play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for really stupid stories, giving them ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game because, well, they keep paying us. I'm as confused as you are. But hey, alrighty, sir. Here are your headlines this morning. Headline number 1, hot and ready is a lie. Headline number 2, sounds like a prank. Headline number 3, customer service is job 1. And headline number 4, not the whole story. Your choices yet again are hot and ready is a lie, sounds like a prank, customer service is job 1, and not the whole story.
Based on our last conversation, not the whole story.
Not the whole story. Yes. This we are going to go to Loveland, Ohio. And the headline doesn't necessarily tell you the entire story. See, the headline reads as follows. Popular tri-state Luke Skywalker impersonator dies, coroner report shows.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes. However, let's read further. Evidently, the headline master did not read the entire story because the opening sentence of the story is a tri-state man known for his Luke Skywalker impersonations died of an apparent suicide following his arrest for child porn charges, according to the coroner. little bit different.
That feels different. That feels
very,
a
very
little bit different.
Very different. I love how, I don't know if the person's a Star Wars fan or what, but I love the fact that in the headline, they do popular tri-state Luke Skywalker impersonator dies, leaving out the stuff about the suicide and the porn.
Oh, he kept trying
Nice
to stick his
job.
lightsaber in the wrong places.
I'm not even going to touch that.
Oh, yeah, don't, because it'll burn you.
Yes, all righty. Next choice, sir. Hot and ready is a lie. Sounds like a prank or customer service is job one.
I hope it's not related to the last story, but hot and ready is a lie.
Hot and ready is a lie. A Tennessee man has pleaded guilty to pointing an AK-47 rifle at a Little Caesars employee because his pepperoni pizza was not ready. Yes, 64-year-old Charles Doty agreed last month to dangerous gunplay at a restaurant in Knoxville. He was charged with multiple felony accounts because his $6 pepperoni pizza was not ready on time. The employee said, "Hey, hot and ready isn't like all the time, dude. Calm down." But he decided to get out his gun and point it at people. Because of pizza. I don't know. Yeah. And final choice this morning sounds like a prank or customer service is job one.
Customer service is job one?
Yeah, is customer service job one? That is a question Delta Airlines is asking after passengers took to social media to vent their frustrations with the airline after they were stranded for over 12 hours on pretty much a deserted island. Just a few hours after taking off from Ghana, Flight 157 was diverted from its New York destination to the island of Tesseria for a mechanical issue with backup oxygen system. The 215 passengers spent much of their time on the island without water, food, or any updates from the staff. The problem is it's such a small island, you have to have a specific passport in order to wander around. The travelers were not even allowed to wander around the airport. They were confined to a certain area. They felt like they were corralled. And how did Delta deal with it? Well, one of the staffers kindly reminded them, well, hey, at least the plane didn't crash. That was their good feelings, was telling them, hey, the plane didn't crash. So what are you complaining about? You're still alive. They were there for several hours, and that was it. Then they got back on the plane and had to fly. So that's all we got. And we're running out of time, so I don't have time to do the advertiser. So I apologize.
No, you don't need to apologize. The police have just shown up here. I think based on our last conversation, they have stormed they have no warrant is what they've announced too. If I'm back on the air after this, it'll simply be because I've talked my way out of yet another arrest. Listen, when we come back, it's going to be the chief of police for Aurora, Art Acevedo. He has several confessions to make to the public. We're here to take them. If you have questions for the chief, you can text in. I will see if he sticks around long enough. Maybe we can even get him to answer some calls on the phone. 303-696-1971. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Welcome back to the second hour of the George Show on 710 KNUS. You know, we're with you till 10, and then Charlie Kirk takes over, and then a guy named Dennis Prager, followed by Seb Gorka, and then we go live and local right back here in this chair with Deb Flora, and then Stephen Tubbs on his never-ending swan song. I think he's now pushed back his retirement to November of 2025. It's just an excuse to get people in the studio. You don't actually have to leave the job to get someone good in the studio. Here's the proof right now in studio, which is a nice change because he's been on the phone for work stuff the last couple times. He's the chief of police for the Aurora Police Department. His name is Art Acevedo. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning. Thank you. It's great to be on with you and your listeners.
I know that you're super busy, so thanks for coming in here to do this. You were anxious to talk about Miami.
What did my Twitter feed give that up? Hey, we're bringing them in there. We are taking Miami back on behalf of the American people.
It seems like you were on the cutting edge of whatever was going on there. You were calling it out early. So I mean, now it's working itself out. If folks don't know what's going on there, do a little search. Just go look at the Miami Herald and take a look at some of the stories that they're writing. Listen, Chief, I like to get the updates from you since the last time we talked. I know you're a data-driven guy as well as a guy who's on the ground all the time. First, give us the sort of thumbnail sketch. Where are we with things like motor vehicle theft, burglary, all the other crimes and stuff that are...
Everything continues to trend downward this year, with the exception, again, of shoplifting, burglaries. Those are the two that really are still problematic.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's two things. One, there really aren't that many consequences when we do arrest you for burglary or shoplifting, and so that's a problem. The second piece is that we're really trying to encourage our retailers to actually prosecute, to actually detain, to actually hold people accountable, and I think they're starting to get a little fed up with it. So I think what's happening is that we're actually getting the calls and we're actually getting the reports, and that's kind of what's driving it a little bit. So one of the
it's maybe it's a more positive sign than the numbers would reveal, because you think people are now actually trusting law enforcement to come out and do something.
Yeah, and you know, and I think if you look online, you see a lot of the viral videos. The American people are tired of somebody's going to pay for that. It isn't going to be the crooks, right? So, you see people taking matters in their own hands with all these smash and grabs and all these things that are going on. And a lot of it is really organized retail theft. It's gangs, bands of folks that get together and they go do this resale somewhere. And so we're trying to get a little bit better in terms of connecting the dots and going after folks for being prolific, organized retail thieves. And hopefully we'll get some good cases.
Are they locally grown, organized retail thieves?
A lot of these folks are local, but a lot of them also are travel. We know that. And it's just even your burglaries. I mean, when you have a major event, if there's I can almost guarantee you, if you go at University of Colorado, it's now it's a little school there with some Barry, what's his name, coach or something?
Barry.
What's his name? Was it Barry Sanders? Huh?
Coach Prime.
Dion?
Yeah,
Coach Prime.
It's all right. Top 20 school, not a big deal in terms of football, but 9.3 million people watched that ESPN game, most ever, for a game that started on the East Coast at 10 p.m. That's insane.
Yeah, look, I don't care what people say about the guy. He's dynamic, and if I were a dad who had a kid playing college football, that's where I'd want him to go, because he's going to take care of his players. He's not the only one making money there. I guarantee you, now the players are going to be making money there. And there's a good buzz going on.
I just love the idea that this guy, and he's so business minded too, that when Jay Norville knocks him for wearing sunglasses during interviews and stuff, he then sells like multi-million dollars worth of sunglasses. Like, thank you, my man. You know,
hey, it's called. You know what? The more people talk about him, the more marketable he becomes.
Oh my gosh!
And The Rock was there last Saturday.
The Rock
gives him
on the sidelines.
Yeah, gives them the glasses. So it's exciting. I'm happy for their fans, and I'm happy for Colorado to see that kind of.
Do you think, like the Broncos, the CU Buffs may relocate to Aurora?
Look, if the Walmart family is listening, I promise you, if you come to Aurora, the Native American spirit will spread like wildfire, and you will have that warrior spirit, and you'll start winning. So come to Aurora, relocate. We'll take care of you.
That's it. People are forgetting about the Broncos, by the way, because of the Buffs. I think because of Deion, they're like, oh, yeah, are we 0-2? Are we playing this year? I mean, has the regular season started?
I was there for the first game. I was against the Raiders with my brother-in-law and my nephew who lives here in Aurora with his wife. And it was fun. I mean, it's a good crowd. I really enjoyed the Bronco fans. They were great. And my nephew, unfortunately, and my brother-in-law are huge Faders fans.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Are they on parole?
No, but they believe in restorative justice, so they appreciate that the Raiders actually get to travel on parole across the nation. The California parole wasn't letting them there, and so that's why I had to move to Vegas, where everything goes in Vegas.
Yeah,
so
that's the truth. And it's not true, by the way. What happens in Vegas never, ever, never stays in Vegas unless it's buried. Maybe if it's buried there.
Yeah, and if you go outside of Vegas into the desert, you probably find a lot of things buried.
Yeah, look, maybe the Broncos season will be there at some point. Listen, one of the things that you've done is to do a reorganization there at APD. You wanted to talk about that. Tell me what you've done. You're doing away with the PIOs and the comms people.
I didn't know we had PIOs. We do? Is that? I say, hey Matt, how are you? No, actually, I've been here for 9 months, and I'm of the belief that the hardest working person in the command should be the commander. It should be the leader. No one should outwork the leader. And so for the last 9 months, I've been assessing the organization. I spent a lot of time on patrol. Last 2 Saturdays ago, I was out for 26 hours,
wow,
nonstop. And I've told them I expect people not to be absentee landlords. I expect you to be out on nights, on weekends, holidays, and not every weekend, not every night, but you've got to be out there with your folks. You've got to be showing them support. And so we now have three new commanders. Every one of our districts have commanders in there now that just reported this last Saturday. I'm excited. There's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. We promoted or appointed, because we want to make sure you're not entitled to this rank.
Right.
You're appointed, and like they say, you can be appointed, you can be disappointed. It's up to you. It's the balls in your hand. It's in your court. Kevin Barnes, who is just a phenomenal leader. Another workhorse, a guy that's always out there. And, when you spend 9 months in a place and you're out and you're always seeing the same faces, well, they're kind of telling you, let me in, coach. Right. Yeah. So, it's kind of like the guy that comes to practice on time or early and stays late and works on their own time is the one that ends up being the starter. Well, these are our starters.
Are these additional commanders or are these replacement commanders for whoever was in there?
These are replacement commanders, replacement division chief for folks that rolled back.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. That philosophy that you brought to it, then, do the newly appointed commanders, are they also under the belief that, hey, this isn't a forever kind of a thing? I'm going to continue to reassess you. And if 9 months from now I come to a different conclusion about what to do in the game, I may pull you out.
Hey, it's the deal is this. Every day is a job interview, especially like for a police chief. I'm one incident away from looking for a job, but you got to earn it, man. Leadership is a privilege, and it's a privilege that we have to earn each and every day. Just like wearing this uniform, representing this department is a privilege that you have to earn from the minute you swear in to the last day you walk off into the sunset. And so that's the culture that we want in terms of leadership. I'm excited because I really believe that the folks that we have appointed are going to bring some tremendous energy to our young officers in the field.
The patches, keeping them, changing them.
Yeah, I think that if we try to take away the patches now, the same people that were probably complaining.
That's so crazy, isn't it? Because when Dan brought the patches in, it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's kind of like in Austin when I got there. They had a little badge. It was about yay big for the people online.
Yeah.
It probably cost the city about $19 out the door, right? And everybody had their little, can I say CRAPPY or no?
Crappy?
Crappy, there we go.
You can't
well, their happy badge. It looked like it came in a Happy Meal, right? So the officers themselves designed a beautiful badge in Austin. Look up this badge. I think it's one of the more beautiful badges in the country. Oh, some of those guys. Yeah. Hey, you thought that I killed their firstborn. Now go back and try to take away those badges.
The new badges.
Oh, it's beautiful. Well, they're not new.
Well, there's a point of pride there and all that other stuff.
But you know what? People are always talking about tradition. Like, okay, let's go back to maybe a 6-shooter at best or a flint gun. That's tradition. So, but no, it's an exciting time in Aurora. We've got some great folks. Heather Morris, I think, is doing a phenomenal job.
That's your deputy.
Deputy chief. Yeah, she's.
We were going to try to get her in here at one point. I had her on the phone, as you know.
Yeah. No, did she ever come in? No, she didn't.
She didn't.
Next month.
Scared. She was scared.
Oh God, no. She's scary. She's trust me. She's from Houston. She's been a long time.
I want her to listen to this and hear the chief go, she's scary.
Oh yeah, she is. I hope she's listening.
Listen, and I don't want you to opine on the merits. I don't think you would anyway if I asked, but you're now the chief of a police department that is seeing unfold in the courtrooms in Adams County, head by the Attorney General, a really big case. It was a case that got national attention. It was my God, Ellen DeGeneres weighed in on this thing. It had 8 trillion people sign a change.org petition that got the governor to appoint the AG, blah, blah. All this stuff has gone on. Yeah. There are 3 Aurora officers involved. The question I have for you is, and you weren't here for any of it, is it a distraction to the men and women in Aurora? What do you do to keep them focused, not distracted? I mean, how does this case, if at all, impact what they're doing out on the street?
Well, we kind of have a gag order by the judge on the case, so I'm not going to speak about the case itself. Right. But when you have these kind of incidents or you have something going on that impacts everyone, we tell our officers this is a country where the rule of law matters, and there's a process, and we just go out and do our job each and every day and do it to the best of our ability. And the best thing about this is eventually, this is another step closer to closure for all the involved parties, the community, the department, the involved officers, and I'm grateful that it's finally here, because truly it's kind of like when you lose a loved one, you can't really move on until the day that you bury them. Then it's really that you move on. So that's where we're at. And I just hope that guys and ladies, I keep telling them, just let the process take its course. Just keep doing your job, and let's just move forward.
And that's the question I have. You've been chief in a bunch of different places. This won't be the first time that an officer's been accused of some sort of misconduct that's done something. But because of that investment in the process, is the outcome relevant? And I don't want to diminish that term. What I mean is, does the outcome, whether it's one way or another, in a case like this, not this specific case, have an impact on the morale, the mood, the operations of the police department?
I think it depends on the actual case. It depends on the facts in the case. And I can tell you that most police officers hold themselves and each other to a pretty high standard. So when it's a clear-cut situation, again, I'm not speaking to this case specifically because we really can't. Yeah. I'll give you the example, and that was I won't say his name, but the drunk driver that clearly is under the influence in full uniform.
Oh, I know that case very well.
And there was no charges, and the officers are still upset about that case because they feel like there was a failure to hold the individual accountable. Brought discredit to the department. I think a lot of them think, and I'm not going to argue with it because I think they're right. That was the catalyst for the beginning of our downward slide, and they had nothing to do with that. They are really upset. So I hope the public knows that police officers, the vast majority of them, sometimes labor will defend the indefensible, but you kind of pay dues for that, but they do it publicly, which I think sometimes hurts us instead of just doing it in the courts and in the process. But officers are not, they want accountability just like everybody else does. Again, outside of this case, I'm not talking about the specific.
The DUI case, and I'm happy to say the name because I'm the one that had to wear that decision. It was Sergeant Nate Meyer, and I remember that's not the one. Oh, I've been corrected on his rank. I thought you were going to give me a different name, and I'm like, there was more than one. Yeah. And I remember that case because it had happened like in, I want to say like a February or something, and then I got a call from Brian Moss from Channel 4.
Oh, Brian Moss, I know that guy.
Yeah, I know. But he called up and he goes, hey, I want to get a statement from you on this Aurora PD guy got a DUI. And I'm like, okay, over the course of my time in office, I think we prosecuted 32 law enforcement officers from across the jurisdiction for things like that. Yeah. And sure. And I had never heard of this case before. It had never been brought to me. When I finally got it and I realized that there had been a decision to steer away the normal DUI cops that were going to get the blood draw and were going to do the other things. And I got stuck with this steaming pile of crap, and there was no good outcome. There was no, I could have charged him to just assuage the public. It was a loser. Yeah. It was going to be a loser. And then to not charge him, also a loser, because the public is like exactly what you said, Chief, which is, holy smokes, man. Yeah. Dude clearly was drunk. Yeah. Dude clearly had the kind of BAC taken at the hospital that wouldn't have been admissible for my purposes, and made the comments during the IA, the Garrity, after the Garrity advisement. And folks are probably like, what the hell are you talking about? There's just a bunch of internal stuff that takes place where officers are provided an opportunity and an incentive to be candid about what they did in a way that doesn't put them on the hook criminally, because we're trying to continue to perfect the system and make sure that we're not doing bad things.
Well, I mean, actually, they are compelled to speak. It's a compelled statement.
That's true.
Yeah.
Compelled. Well, they wouldn't have to, as long as they're willing to give up their job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's,
it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
And I think the only way that can be used is maybe for impeachment and like civil rights or trial or something.
Yep. But I could never access it. So here the public knows. They're like, well, the hospital said he had a BAC of 1,000 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
It was pretty.
I don't get that. I can't admit that. Like, but he told the cops that he had been home boozing up before he got in the car. I'm like, I can't use that statement, man. It's the world we live in where, and you're right though, to point out that when things like that happen, the other officers around are like, this is how the public is going to see us, as beating the system on this. And I agree. It was unfair.
And it had nothing to do with the, look,
nope.
The problem in American policing and in this country's leadership. It's, leadership is key. If you don't believe me, just look at the coach at the up there in Boulder.
I know.
How do you go from 1 and 11 to 3-0? And I don't, and you know what? And the tough, I feel sorry for those kids, because even the lousiest schools come in a gun and they want to be able to prove that they're worthy to be on that same
stage.
And
now we have Oregon. Come on.
Yeah.
This is, if we can pull up a win against Oregon and SC.
They've got a tough schedule coming up. Do you have any tickets by any way, Freddie? Okay.
I don't.
What
by the way,
station is this?
The only way, we're not Sports Talk, which is probably good because they've gone through some organizational changes too lately. But no, the only way I was able to get tickets to go to the game on Saturday, and I went with my sons, was my son goes to CSU. So I got tickets through the visitors to come to see. Yes.
Smart. Who did he root for?
Oh, he was clearly rooting for CSU, and I've told the story. He's not a big like sports football guy and stuff, but he went because was going to take the brothers and stuff like that. And he was like, hey, it's going to be a blowout. I'm going to leave at halftime, drive back to Fort Collins. He stayed for the whole thing with his buddy from CU, who we got a ticket for, and they loved it. It was the best thing. He was having such a good time. And for a kid that didn't grow up loving football the way I do and my other son does, he really enjoyed it. It was a hell of a game.
I mean, those kids on both sides of the ball just left it on the field. It was a fantastic. Actually, unfortunately, I was working patrol, so I missed it. But I went into the station. I'm looking. I go, looks like they're about to lose, and I left. And the next morning, I couldn't believe that.
Oh my gosh, this Shadur kid is ridiculous.
I wish I would have watched the whole thing.
But your point about the leadership thing is real. Let's talk about this other thing. I tried to show you the handwriting here that Billy has engaged in. Billy must be a part-time doctor, because some of this prescriptive handwriting looks like it's the word True Leo.
True Leo, yeah.
True Leo. What is that?
It's a body-worn camera analytics program that actually can analyze every second body-worn camera video, and it prepares a report to.
Is it Chat GPT?
No, I've actually used that to see what
somebody used it. It did a demo for me, and I was like, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I said Matt is, and you don't want to know what I found about it. No kidding. But it's a program that I believe is going to help us tell the story of American policing as it spreads across the country. Every time there's a viral video, law enforcement doesn't do a very good job of telling its own story. We sit back and wait till there's a viral video, and we're always responding to that viral video.
Exactly.
And then we always say, hey, it's just a few bad apples. I say a few bushels of apples, because I've worked in my career. We know there's some bad actors out there. But this program is actually going to help us actually show definitively that truly is, that viral video truly is a complete outlier, because it's capturing when our officers are doing a great job. And what we're noticing so far, we're part of an academic study for 6 months involving South Carolina, the University of South Carolina, is that the public doesn't act very nicely towards our officers. They're just can be abusive at times, some of the folks that we deal with. And what we're finding is that while people might act the fool, the very vast majority of the time, our officers are above that. They're staying professional. So we can now quantify, right? The ACLU in Colorado came out against us when we were in the media talking about procuring it in LA.
Why? Well, why does the ACLU? Why would they be opposed to transparency?
See, you're an attorney. You're a smart guy.
I don't know about that.
that should be your clue for our officers listening, that it may not be a bad thing for us as a profession. They say it's because it's a privacy issue. Okay. They just told me that, in the LA Times called me last week about it, because LAP's talking. And I said, well, if that's the case, then let's get rid of body-worn cameras. Let's get rid of in-car cameras.
They don't want to do that.
Because there's nothing. We could do the same thing Trulio does by having, 100 people that all they do is sit there and watch every second of video and preparing a report. The only difference is that that's human beings that are a lot more subjective in terms of what they're looking at, as opposed to AI that's a much more objective. And so at the end of the day, I am really excited because we are finding some just great police work.
So is this a software? Is it the actual camera?
No, it's a software.
What's the camera you guys are wearing? Who does it?
I hate advertising for these guys. They're the big gorilla.
Well, but you don't have to say who it is. But
it's Axon.
Okay, Axon. So it's their camera, but then you're taking this other Trulio software, and it sits down and goes through every second of this.
Every second. What it does, it takes the audio, and it prepares a report on it. And
wow,
it's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to see the results of the. Look, cops are conspiracy theorists. I mean, I had someone tell me, even when we mute, it's still transcribing. And I go, okay. And I said, do you hear that? And what? You hear that? What? It's a little black helicopter flying overhead. It cannot transcribe what is being muted, but it's a great tool. And I think that some officers are very skeptics. They're skeptics.
Yeah.
But try to take away body-worn. Cops didn't want body-worn cameras.
Oh, I know. I was there.
Yeah. And I'll try to take these bad boys away. These cameras have saved untold number of police officers from frivolous complaints. And, and let's face it, when it comes to deadly encounters, uses of force, the very, very vast majority are absolutely objectively reasonable, and they're morally just. I mean, that's a fact.
Well, and if you were in this environment right now, this hypersensitive environment, where you just were pitting the officer's word against whatever else was out there, you could be in real trouble. Instead, now the officers, it's not what I said, it's what this thing captured, you know?
So that ship has sailed. And I predict in the next 5 years, you'll see it across the country, some form of analytics. It's just, we have so much data that we've collected and we've done nothing with it. So we wait till there's a grand jury subpoena, right? We wait till there's a defense attorney asking for video. We wait till all these things happen, the media asking for it. We don't have the bandwidth to review them. So we're handing things out in the blind. And now we really have no excuse to not know about something as this tool becomes more refined.
I'd be interested to see how that plays out too, Chief, because prosecutors' offices get all the same video that you guys generate on the case that get filed. I don't know how a prosecutor or defense attorney can sit there and watch it all. I wonder if that kind of software doesn't have an application there too, so that they can sift through and try to figure out what's going on.
It does. I mean, if you're a defense attorney, a plaintiff's attorney, insurance defense attorney, whatever it is, you can buy the tool too, I would assume.
Does the fact that you have this AI stuff, I'm probably creating a problem I shouldn't, but does it make it a government record that someone could reach out and grab, or is it criminal justice record?
It's a personnel it's a personnel evaluation.
Okay.
And so our position is that unless it's used because we can cover misconduct or criminal conduct, or it's really a personnel evaluation record. It's not public.
There's a couple other things I want to talk to you about. Can you hang out for a break here?
Oh yeah. Are we going to talk to are we getting any calls today? That's what I like.
I haven't even asked, but listen, if you got a question for Chief Art Acevedo from the Aurora Police Department, now's the chance. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Even if you're a Rams fan, a CSU Rams fan.
Oh, I thought you were the Los Angeles Rams.
That's
my team.
Oh,
that's my team.
God,
yeah.
Chief. Whatever credibility you had up until that moment, you've just sort of flushed some of that away.
You've got to stick with your childhood team.
That part is true. Listen, I'll take that. I'll take that. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break. When we come back, it'll be me and the Chief, and hopefully you two. Give us a call, give us a text. George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Little Cranberries here on 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you in studio. Chief of Police for Aurora, Art Acevedo. I promised you access to the chief by way of questions if you did these little things like press numbers in your phone, 303-696-1971 to prove that. Marcus from Aurora, you're on 710 with Art Acevedo and this guy right here. What's your question, sir?
Well, there's not a question. He's done a great job. Do you know that borderline on Colfax from Yosemite, and then he put the police officers up there at the shopping center to go out and talk to the people and everything, because it's a drug dealer haven, and the chief's got people down there, and things have just calmed down.
What?
It's just
was this a planted call, Marcus? Were you told to call? Because this is really good news.
no, it's true. He's done that.
Well,
and,
actually,
and they reach out.
Chief,
well, thanks, big brother. Listen, it's not rocket science. I think the more when there's a police presence and visibility and engagement, and you get out of the cars and you build relationships, it has a positive impact. And so I really appreciate that. But it's not the chief; it's really the men and women out there that are. I say they're lean, but they don't make excuses. They make a difference. And thanks for giving that example.
Marcus, do
Yeah,
you have a sense of where it is you'd like to see Aurora continue to put its efforts? If there's something in your community where you're like, this continues to be a problem, what would it be?
No, they're doing it. He's, and I agree with him. It's the people, but he brought something different, and you see the changes, and it's just amazing. It's just they're out there, and then the police officers are getting respected. They've got heart. He put that, instilled that into them. So it's just amazing.
Well, thanks again,
Marcus.
really
Thank you for that phone call.
Great way to start the morning. Thank you.
Let's turn it to something maybe a little less cheery, and that is fatalities, road fatalities. What are we seeing out there in Aurora, and why?
Well, they're continuing to go up. I mean, I think we're at 48.
What?
49 now.
Not just for Aurora.
Just for Aurora.
49 road fatalities?
That just angers me because every fatality is 100% preventable. Every single one. And it starts with individual responsibility. People understanding that the posted speed limit is just that. It's there for a reason. It's based on engineering. It's based on traffic volumes. It's based on a lot of study. And unfortunately, people just like the speed. And, thank God for our motor enforcement team that go out and write tickets, and now they're going to start working a little later into the night because we want to slow people down. But it starts with everyone listening to this radio broadcast.
The fatalities themselves, do you guys do an assessment of how many of them are alcohol or drug related as causation?
Yes, and DWI is continuing to be a huge problem, and there's a lot of entertainment districts here in Denver, and everybody doesn't live in Denver. When you leave at 2:00 in the morning, they got to drive somewhere. DUI continues to be a problem. That's why yesterday we actually had a DUI checkpoint. I don't have the numbers yet. Have you gotten the numbers of how many people were arrested, if any? But those checkpoints they're really not about arresting people. They're really about educating people.
That's right.
A lot of people don't realize that. And then I remember a libertarian radio show host that I used to go on in Austin. Hey, this is unconstitutional. No, because we put these signs up, we advertise them.
You have to give them an escape route.
Yes, they're in essence, they're voluntary. You're voluntarily entering there.
Yep.
And the only ones that get caught that are drunk are they're so
That's
drunk,
right.
they have no clue. But they're a great opportunity to really give information to the public about the problems in traffic safety.
For a young prosecutor, we used to do these. The static checkpoints, as you have pointed out, not nearly as effective in catching, but they are great in terms of sending the message that we're out there. But as a young prosecutor, they were fantastic learning ground because you could go out there and be a safe distance from the officer dealing with the person in the car, and you're seeing the things where you're like, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And you know what? He just gave a clue about his work ethic. A young prosecutor going out there on his own time. I guarantee he wasn't getting paid, George, to learn and to get better. And
that was the best.
And that's why you end up being the DA. You put the work in. Leaders have to be the hardest working in an organization.
Thank you for saying that out loud. If anyone out there like Phil Boyce from Salem is listening right now, that's the chief of police saying what. So please, if you're thinking of letting me go later today, give me the rest of the week. That's all I'm asking for there. Something else that we had talked about a little bit off air is asset forfeiture.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on. What's giving you concerns?
Well, this is a national concern, and that is we've got senators and part of the GOP and at the national level that want to completely get rid of asset forfeiture. And I don't get it. I don't understand. If we seize the assets of people that are part of a criminal enterprise, why would we not want to put that back into fighting crime and keeping the American people safe? So I would just hope that the listeners out there realize that that's a movement in the Senate right now. I can't remember the name of what they're calling it. I'll have to text it to you. It's just escaping me right now. But we've kind of lost common sense a little bit. I believe in due process. We need to have a criminal predicate. But if for some reason we grab the assets of crooks, we should be able to put that back into fighting crime and keeping people safe. But that's the world we live in. It's all or nothing type proposition right now in politics.
We had this debate in Colorado with the lefties, and it's interesting because it's not just the lefties; it's the folks on the far right as well, libertarians who see this is what they'd say. You are creating a financial incentive for law enforcement to take stuff because they get to keep a percentage of it. So the state changed all the rules to say that, well, hey, whatever the police end up seizing, a certain percentage will go to them, a teeny tiny percentage, but the rest will go to these other things. And then asset forfeiture fell off a cliff, and they can't imagine why. The problem is, the perception is that police can just show up and say, you can't explain where this money is, we're now going to keep it for. What they don't understand is there is an entire court process that exists before that can happen. There isn't just, I've declared this to be criminal and therefore it's ours. The courts are involved, the same courts we trust to make all these other decisions.
Yeah. And like I said before, it's just, I don't worry about R or D or independent or whatever. I worry about people focusing on being practical, right? It's not about philosophy. It's about results. And I just hope that we can turn the tide on that, because it's going to be a huge loss.
Listen, before we cut you loose, I do want to put in a plug for my normal drive to the station every morning. Billy goes a similar route, but we go by the same thing. There is a small city of homeless people, as you know, that keep popping up here at 225 and Parker Road. Today, I saw lights, like someone had strung, I don't know if it was Christmas lights or something, around one of the 8 tents that was there. And I know that it goes away because when I leave the studio, I see you and the other city folks they just keep popping up. This is like the worst case of acne I've ever seen. Like as soon as the blemish goes, boop, it pops right back up the next day.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And I saw that when I got off to come here this morning. I'm like, oh, here we go. We're going to have to go check it out.
There's going to be an election for a mayor of Homeless Town right there. I don't know if that's something.
Hey, at least they don't have a bar. They're not operating a bar like
the bar in the prostitute. What a crazy story.
Yeah, it's and the part of the problem around this area is that there's different jurisdictions, and jurisdictional lines get a little hazy sometimes. But I think we all need to come together as a government, county, state, feds, and local, to address that issue.
Is there any way to just simply pass out even taxpayer-funded flyers alerting them to the micro homes that they're building in Denver? We had the mayor of Denver on the radio yesterday. Apparently, they're investing tens of millions of dollars. It seems like a great place to resettle.
Well, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Where do we sign people up?
I think you just go by and give them flyers. Here you go.
Yeah.
Here's the bus route. They don't ever check.
You just got to be careful. I mean, you just got to be careful because you don't want to become a magnet. Again, people don't realize that you've got your homeless population.
Yeah.
And in amongst that, or unhoused, or whatever the politically correct term is. And then amongst that population, you have the criminal transient population that they travel the country. They go to they go to libraries. They use Gmail or whatever mail for free. And hey, the going's good over here. You get you get 4 hot meals a day. No, the cops don't bother you, or they're going to give you these little homes and everything else. So we want to deal with the issue, but I'm not sure we want to advertise too much, because then you become a magnet for some of the more unscrupulous individuals out there.
Amen to that. Chief of Police for Aurora Police Department, Art Acevedo, thanks for your time this morning, being in studio with us. I much prefer this, obviously, than the phone, but I know how busy you are doing the other work, so hopefully we'll get you back in.
Oh, yeah, we'll be back next month. And to the listeners, remember, you have complete control on who lives and dies. In other words, drive safely and buckle up and don't drink and drive.
Amen to that. Chief of Police for Aurora, Art Acevedo. Hey, my name's George Brauchler. I'll be back with you and the Smarty Smart folks at Alpine Planning when we come back. It's the George Show, 710 KNUS. Little Stevie Nicks right here, 710 KNUS. Speaking of rumors, let's go to the VIP line right now. This dude's got to be pleased as punch with his Seattle teams. His name is Gabe from Alpine Planning. Gabe, 1 second here. Hey, Billy, I can't make Stevie Nicks stop singing. There it is right there.
George, every time the music plays that long, I imagine you eating an apple. And not realizing you're live on air.
That happens. I'm telling you, we're going to get the clip from Anchorman, and I know you know this one from the opening credits where the guy leans in and he goes, "You are on the air," and he's drinking and smoking, and he says, "I don't believe you," and he just keeps. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. I appreciate your little note there. Yeah, if the Mariners can make the playoffs 2 years in a row, I'll be a happy man.
Buddy, unbelievable. Meanwhile, the Yankees and the Red Sox are battling for last place. So,
and money doesn't buy wins or happiness, George. You know what I mean?
I believe you in the first part. The second part, I'd like to find out firsthand.
Well, that's something I can talk about here. We're actually starting off in the green today, George.
Right on.
A little bit in the red yesterday, but currently have the Dow up 142 points. S&P is up 13, and the NASDAQ is up 34. So we're looking at about anywhere from 0.25% to 40 basis points. Today, the big news, George, is it's Fed meeting day. So the Fed will be announcing their Fed rate decision at noon Mountain Time. That's 2 Eastern. The majority of the consensus is that they will not raise at this meeting. I think, similar to some of the other meetings we've had earlier this year, it's really going to be their rhetoric and thoughts on where GDP is going, where inflation is going, where unemployment is going. Right now, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Fed Watch tool has a 40% chance of one more hike this year.
Okay.
So we'll see if we get one of those. Obviously, the higher interest rates are affecting a lot of people. Credit card debt is starting to mount. People are defaulting on their car loans, things of that nature.
Really?
So that's something we're watching. So that's something we're watching closely today.
I also read an article in the paper today that Colorado is one of 11 states that is starting to see its property values or housing prices fall over the last year. So that's got to be related.
Yeah. And I think from there, you're sort of seeing not only the overzealous move of people coming here, which really drove up prices, but obviously interest rates going up. And I think, with a lot of our clients, this is something we discuss with them in detail. A lot of people got huge property increases for their tax assessment. And that was actually something we discussed with our clients. Hey, are you going to file an appeal? Are you not? And I think that really goes into the comprehensive nature of some of the advice and thoughts we offer to our clients.
To the extent that we don't do something stupid and give away our Tabor refunds for eternity for a small pittance, are those refunds something that you could throw into a retirement account?
It depends all on your current situation, whether you're working, whether you're not working, your earnings limitations, whether it's a retirement account or not. It can be invested. It's just a matter of which type of an account it goes into.
Well, Gabe, I got to say, I wish I had time to talk to you about the Geno Smith Part 2 thing, because this dude is seeing a resurgence I don't think anybody saw coming, but it inures to the benefit of the Seahawks, which really breaks my heart since they're a former AFC West team. But that's for later. For later. You and I have plenty of time to talk Seattle in the future.
I just hope you guys are happy with Russell.
Oh God, you had to go there. No, I'm not. I might not even read the liner now for Alpine. You tell Brian and Amy, based on that punch to the Broncos fandom. I don't know. I'm totally kidding. Alpine Planning Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to poking you right in the eye, Broncos fans, and improving your long-term financial success. Investing, it's a matter of trust, and they're prepared to earn yours with brutal candor. Call them today at 303-843-0918, 303-843-0918. Gabe, thanks so much.
You be well, sir.
See you, buddy.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
Thanks to Chief Art Acevedo, we're going to have the conversations with you when we come back. Get the phones lit up there, 303-696-1971, and the text when we come back. It's me, George, 710, KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. We are halfway through the week. We're halfway through the week. Every minute after this moment right here is another step towards another wonderful weekend. Yep, you know what it was. That's exactly right. Billy and I continue to talk off air about this, that, and the other. Most of it not that good, but some of it is very, very interesting. For instance, had you heard, did you know that a guy named Ray Epps, if you know where I'm going with this, then you can just call in right now, 303-696-1971. Ray Epps has been charged with crimes related to his participation in the events of January the 6th, 2021. That's right. The former Marine was charged with, I think it was participating in a riot. I'm trying to find the right one right now. He was charged in the, just when you click on an X on a tab, I don't know if you guys have seen this, it actually closes the whole damn tab. And then when you try to open it again, it just gets bad. Here's what it is. He's charged with a count of disorderly conduct for his role in the attack on the Capitol. It made me wonder what the reaction would be to him being charged. And I say that because for the longest time, and even now, I hear from you, and I hear from others, and I see on the social media that Ray Epps is clearly an FBI. If he's not an agent, he's an FBI shill or a plant. And his job was to try to stir up people to leave their senses and go into the Capitol to do horrible things. And then they got thrown into some deep well underneath the Capitol where they never get to see light, let alone their attorneys, and they don't get food and water and all these horrible things. Well, Ray Epps has now been charged with a crime. In fact, he had predicted for a long time now he was going to be charged with a crime for what he did there. Nobody ever believed him. He even filed a lawsuit against Fox News for their portrayal of him. I don't know if that sounds familiar, by the way, but Fox News has gotten into some hot water recently over their portrayal of the Dominion voting machine thing and all that other stuff, and they ended up settling. So Epps is now suing them. But he ends up getting charged with a crime by the Department of Justice. And my gut reaction was, this will change no one's mind. I mean, crazily, this will change no one's mind. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have underestimated people's perceptions of this guy and his role in this, and that it has become this partisan, MAGA, if you will, driven perception of the events that is immutable in the face of any other changes or charges. And so the question that I guess I'd ask you, and I started to have this conversation with Billy off the air, do you change your opinion about Epps? Do you believe it? When Epps gets charged with a crime, does it change your mind about his role as either an FBI shill or, I don't know what the better term is. There's probably some term of art for it, that he was working for the FBI or the government in some way to try to encourage this riot thing? Does it change your mind? 303-696-1971. I'm interested. Here's a text from our buddy Alexa. There are a lot of similarities on how they handled Hunter and Ray Epps. Do nothing for years, minimal charges, no jail time. Why was he on the FBI's list with his picture and then they took it off? These are complete BS slap on the wrist charges so they can pretend they did something just like they did with Hunter. That to me is what I thought was going to happen. That's the response that in my mind I thought would be generated from the folks who have that conspiratorial view of the events of January the 6th. And I get it. I mean, for some of the reasons Alexa put in there, you look at the way Hunter Biden got treated and it seemed like it was, well, we'll give you a teeny tiny pinch on your rumpus over that whole tax thing, but we're not going to pursue the gun thing. Or we're going to let the clock run out on the statute of limitations on the tax thing. And then when the public gets crazy, all of a sudden Weiss gets the superpowers of a special prosecutor or a special counsel, and he's allowed to do certain things. That's what I think is going to happen here. The fact that this guy gets charged by the Department of Justice, faces potential jail time, by the way, I just don't think it's going to change anyone's mind. And if not, why not? And I think Alexa, at least here, has voiced, I think it's all part of, and if I'm saying this wrong, Alexa, you can correct me in text or give us a call, but that it's all part of this conspiracy. It's all part of this cover-up. Now, the Hunter Biden one, you can say, I get why they're covering up for Hunter Biden, because Hunter Biden is the son of the president. And so anything he does, DOJ is going to try to take a different view than it would if it was you or I that engaged in the same behavior. And I believe that 100%. And again, that's that two-tiered system, not DNR, but politically and elite and powerful and us. So I believe that. But does this change your opinion on Epps? Why? And if not, why not? If this guy were to be sentenced to jail for his conduct, would it change your mind? Or is all of this just proof that, I mean, and if you believe this guy's like, I was a full-on MAGA dude. I was a full-on Kool-Aid drinker. But at some point I was like, no, we shouldn't be doing this after it was too late to put the genie back in the bottle. Either this guy is one of the MAGA folks who's now since been reformed through his experience or something. I don't know what the term is. Or he's some kind of a plant. And can you imagine, I mean, short of TV or movies, folks, can you imagine a guy signing up to go to jail to help cover up the government's role in this? 303-696-1971. I'm anxious to hear whether or not this changes your opinion of what happened, or does it solidify it? I think for some, this is now confirmation that Ray Epps was absolutely part of some government scheme to get this thing ginned up at the Capitol. Let's go to the phone lines and find out. Pete, you're on 710 KNUS. Pete, what do you think?
Hey, George, thank you for taking my call, and thanks for raising these important issues. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
So really, I'd point out in the New York Post today, which has done a great job covering a lot of important issues, that I think her first name is Marina Devine. She's their publisher or top writer. She had a very sourced article that the FBI is undertaking an audit to find out how many undercover agents or operatives they had at the Capitol. It turned out there were so many that they lost track of them. So I think the bigger point is beyond Ray Epps, and I honestly don't have an opinion as much about him. It does seem awfully suspicious that others were arrested for far less charges, but the evidence is that there were lots of operatives in the crowd, and I think that had a big influence.
I'm looking at that based on what you told me, man. I went and looked up the article while you were saying your piece, and it's called, you can find this on the New York Post. It's Miranda Devine. Miranda Devine. It's called FBI Lost Count of How Many Paid Informants Were at Capitol on January 6th and later performed audit to figure out the exact number. That was from an ex-official. To be clear, when you use the term operative, I just don't want it to be so broad that it gobbles up agents. None of this suggests that these were FBI agents, but that they were, I think the term they use is confidential human sources, which to me sounds like paid informants or paid somebody, but it doesn't sound like it's agents that are in there. Does it surprise you that the FBI on any kind of a gathering of this size would have folks in there that they're paying to give them intel on?
I would say not. And if one projects goodwill upon them, you would hope that they're there to, help bad things not happen. But I think the American people have seen a lot of issues with the FBI that we're losing confidence in them. And I think, I think that they have a lot to do to restore that confidence. Well, I don't think that's the fault of the American people. I think that's the FBI really needing to really focus its mission.
Well, and Pete, this dovetails pretty nicely with some recent polling that has come out that has talked about how we're at sort of almost historic lows on our trust of government. And that's across the board. As you can imagine, the folks in the blue trust the government more than the folks in the red, but it's still pretty historically low. In your mind, maybe it's not in your mind, in your heart, when you look at this and you read the story from Miranda Devine from the Post and you see the Ray Epps thing, what do you think went on January the 6th involving the FBI and Ray Epps?
I think there's more to the story than really has been revealed yet. If I could, and this is truly, you can source this, but there was another person in the crowd. It was someone who took the video of the murder or the killing of the woman who was shot outside the Senate chambers. I can't quite remember her name right now, but
Ashley was her name.
Ashley, yeah. In the background, you can hear the person taking the video yelling, "Break in, break the window." And he later sold the video to a bunch of media outlets. Then they went back and recaptured that video. And that person was even then identified as a member of Antifa. And so he was inside the Capitol. He took that video. He was obviously doing the same thing, yelling things to incite the crowd, but then he disappeared afterwards. So, I guess George, and I thank you. I read the news. I listen to your show, really enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just think that when you don't get all the news, it prompts conspiracy theories. So it's important.
Well, where's your head then on this? The Antifa thing is interesting. I'm going to try to find that article. But so what do you think is going on here? And if you would tell me the charging of Ray Epps, it can really only go one of a couple directions, right? Like the dude was legitimately involved in this and he is a defendant like everybody else, or he is being made a defendant to assuage sort of this rising tide of skepticism about how January 6th went down. And it's all part of the plan to sort of cover up his involvement. Do you come down on either one of those camps?
I honestly, I don't have enough information. My main point would be, it just seems like there's so many parts of this that have been controlled, and it's all about a narrative. I strongly object to people walking into the U.S. Capitol, but I just think that it is a tragedy. But at the same time, every election, someone has questioned the election. Steph Abrams in Georgia, or just so many different times. Hillary Clinton, so many elections we've had people say it wasn't a fair election, that the election was stolen, and nothing happened. But in this instance, and let's face it, obviously nobody walked in your.
But you're putting those dots together. What picture does it make for you? And I appreciate you saying, I don't have enough evidence to know for sure. I get it. I'm not asking you to commit to this is what happened, but even when you don't know everything, you have a gut feeling like, dang, I'm starting to think blank. Where does this lead you?
I just think that we the American people deserve the full truth and a full accounting on both sides. And I think that there is a full accounting underway for the people that, if they injured a police officer or went into the Capitol, there's full accounting underway on that side.
There's some too. This Tarico guy, if I mispronounced his name, forgive me. That dude that was like the Proud Boys guy, he wasn't anywhere near the Capitol, and that dude got lit up for like 22 years, something like that in prison. If I've got that wrong, forgive me. That's just in my head. But for his role in helping to organize / encourage all that other stuff, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess all of this is so complicated. What I would just encourage everyone to do is to pause. And, if you're a person of faith, I'm a man of deep faith. Our good Lord loves us. He loves this country. He wants us to love each other. This whole situation can easily be used to, put brother against brother, sister against sister. And, I think at the end of the day, we've got to pray for each other and hope that our nation can really restore what you do. You've dedicated your life to justice. And so what we need to do is to have justice in our nation. There may never be justice in this situation, but it gives us time to maybe, pause and not look at each other with anger or hatred or anything like that. That's kind of maybe what some forces at work want people to do. I think the real answer is to, find a way to care about each other and pray for each other, and where someone has the courage, step up and run for school board or library board or something, take some positive action to be able to help move our country back in a positive direction. So I know that's not answering your question, George. You wouldn't have let me do that in court. So,
I don't have any expectation that you're going to end up in court. So that's probably its own victory of sorts. Pete, thank you for the great phone call, man. I think you're thoughtful. I think you're expressing the concerns I think a lot of people share. I want to talk about what that means for us. Like when you talk about justice we deserve, I agree. I think it's the perception of justice, though, that's driving this. And there are so many good folks out there who have concluded that this was a certain way, that every fact doesn't challenge their opinion. They just figure out a way to dismiss the ones that are harder to absorb or make it part of the. And I'm not saying that I know the truth here. I'm just telling you, based on what I've seen, I've come to a different conclusion. And so when I look at the Ray Epps thing, this feels almost like, I don't know, man, like it's a dream catcher kind of thing where you can see anything you want in there. So if you're a person that's like, I think January 6th is exactly what it was portrayed to be, you see this and go, see, yeah, it took him a long time, but man, the dude got charged. He was just as guilty as the rest of these guys, words to that effect. But if you're a person who thinks something else is afoot, you look at this and say, of course, this is evidence of the cover-up. They had to do it, because if they didn't do it, it would look really, really awful for them, just as it has all this time. Where do you come down on that? 303-696-1971. When you talk about justice, there's the kind that we can talk about here politically. We can talk about justice historically. You can talk about justice as Billy and I did in the 6 o'clock hour in the criminal justice world. But there's also civil justice. And that's where Dan Caplis operates. He's been a justice seeker and a fighter for victims for decades. Doesn't look it, which is really bothersome for a guy who's younger than he is, but looks like I could be potentially his older brother. Where's the gray hair too? And I want to get Dan on the record to tell us why his hair doesn't look like mine, because that's outrageous. Because the dude has been swinging the bat on behalf of victims for decades, taking on the Goliaths out there. And this guy continues to show up like David with the 3 smooth rocks, and he takes down the bad guys time and time again. And so if you're looking for a champion in the civil justice world, someone to prosecute your case, but in the civil justice world, to try to get you some sort of return to as much normalcy as you can after someone's negligence or recklessness has changed your life, then you got to call Dan Caplis and his partner Babar Waheed at 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or check them out at dancaplislaw.com. That's Dan Caplis, Caplis law.com. Go into the text here, and then the phone lines too. There's some more calls coming in. Billy's trying to handle them, but I know there's a line open at 303-696-1971. Here's our text from, it says, Nebraska. George, I've watched that tape on January 6th. I watched it with the sound off several times. It's very enlightening. Watch not MAGA people, but watch the others in the crowd and in the Capitol. I also watched 2,000 Mules, but did you watch it with the sound off? No, I'm kidding. I also watched 2,000 Mules, and I watched that with the sound off. Oh my God. You can get a lot just by watching, not listening. That's true too. And let me tell you where that happened. I saw Ron DeSantis during the debates. This is a complete aside, but the sound was off, and I ended up focusing on his gestures and his body movements. They're a little off-putting to me. I mean, it's just the head shake with the elbow into the side finger pointing thing. It's just not effective for me, but I get your point. And that is that if you watch just the video and don't listen to the sound, where does the eye go? What do you see? And so I guess my question to you, Texter, is what do you conclude from that? Call in and let us know. 303-696-1971. Ray Epps is now a criminal defendant being prosecuted by the Department of Justice, the much maligned Department of Justice. Does it make any difference to you? Does it change your opinion as to what happened? If not, why not? I'm going to cut away for a break. When we come back, we'll get to you, the text, the calls. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
Little Foo Fighters right here, 710. KNUS, George Brauchler back with you, talking a little Ray Epps. He is this guy that Tucker Carlson and many others believe is an informant for the FBI and played some role in, I don't know if it was encouraging the January 6th thing. I don't know that this is the guy that supposedly planned it. I know that there's some video of him, maybe the day before, some social media stuff of him saying, hey, we need to go to the Capitol or storm the Capitol. I can't remember what words he used, but he has been given great credit by some on the right for having been the mastermind of this. And let's talk about why that's important. Not mastermind, but one of the leaders. And it's important because if your conclusion of January 6th is that this was just a bunch of regular old Americans who are showing up to protest what they saw as the certification of a fraudulent election for president. That's a big deal, by the way, that the election was stolen and that the person being installed as president should not have actually been installed as the president. I get it. Big deal. Lots of emotions. We're going to show up. We're going to say some stuff. If your conclusion is these people are all being wrongfully prosecuted for having engaged in otherwise de minimis or maybe even what they perceived to be lawful behavior because they thought they were on a tour or the cops had moved the barriers instead of having them storm the barriers or let them in and all those things, then you look at Ray Epps as a very good boogeyman for this, right? Like, of course, look at Ray Epps. Look at what he said. Look at what he did. And that's the proof that all of those people that are being and that's important too, because the January 6th people, if they're guilty of what they've been accused of, if they're guilty of seditionist, insurrectionist-like behavior, even though the vast majority of them have never been accused of those particular federal offenses, that's how they're being portrayed. If they're guilty of it, isn't it an indictment to some extent of President Trump? Because this is what he's being accused of in the Washington, D.C. case. And so there's this progression of conclusions that are drawn. Well, President Trump didn't do anything wrong, so he can't be responsible for what happened at the Capitol. But what happened at the Capitol was not his responsibility. It's the FBI's responsibility or the government's. They're the ones that caused this thing to happen. They're the ones that encouraged it. And they did it so that they could go after the president, malign the MAGA movement, go after Republicans, and keep Soros and the Democrats in charge of the federal government. And so for that to be, if you want that to be true, then it's easy to look at Ray Epps and say, well, look, I found these two pieces of evidence here, his comments before, some of the stuff with the video of him on the 6th. I can discount everything else he said afterwards as being 60 Minutes. Come on, George. 60 Minutes is a left-wing, untrustworthy news, if you want to use that term, outlet. And yes, the guy's filing a lawsuit against Fox News, but you'd have to do that to keep the cover-up going. Oh, and now he's being charged with a crime. Well, of course he's being charged with a crime. They've got to keep the cover-up going. And so you got to believe all of these things to exist, that there's this, you have to think that a government that is largely incompetent in everything else that it does except making war. I mean, look around. I mean, the reason there's the trust in government so low is government sucks at what it does. It is wasteful. It is patriarchal. It is ineffective. It's elitist. It's wasteful. I mean, all of these things are true. And yet in this one thing, we're like, oh no, these guys are freaking masterminds. Yes, they could. The whole Bay of Pigs couldn't pull that off, couldn't cover up Watergate. But this is this vast conspiracy. And I'm not telling you that there couldn't be evidence that comes out that says, oh my God, there's more at stake here than we think. Maybe. I just haven't seen it yet. But you have to believe, and this is something that our last caller said, very good call, Pete. He talked about, well, it's super complex and super complicated. I agree. If you want to believe that what happened was the product of a government false flag of some kind operation or trying to suck MAGA into making these mistakes and criminal, if you believe it's got to be complicated and complex. But I just want to point you back in time to a guy named Alexander the Great. I don't know if you remember this. And I'm going to give you two different theories here to think about this. Untying this thing is crazy. Well, it made me think of the Gordian knot. Do you remember that from ancient Greek? history and legend that there was this ox cart that had been tied up that for this town, and that the legend was anybody that could untie this ridiculously complicated knot was destined to rule all of Asia. And so Alexander, this young guy who's been kicking butt everywhere he goes, shows up, and they expect him to untie this knot. But the dude doesn't waste time trying to untangle this knot. He simply goes to the easiest solution, which is to pull out his sword and cut the knot in half. Just cuts it open, freeing this ox cart thing, and ultimately proving it wasn't untying the knot. It was getting rid of the knot. And the guy goes on to rule the known world at the time. But I want you to juxtapose that, or at least look at that, maybe not juxtapose, but in unison with Occam's razor. Do you remember Occam's razor? It's the idea that the simplest solution is most often, not in every single case, but is most often the right solution. But with this, we are willing to believe that there is a complicated, complex, conspiratorial set of facts, only a handful of which have been thus revealed, and a whole bunch of people, none of whom have come forward to say, I'm part of this. Not a single one. But we're willing to believe that to the extent of saying, oh, Ray Epps being charged, it's just part of the conspiracy. Now, Alexa texted in and said, why did it take him 2.5 years to prosecute him? That is really super weird. I agree. You didn't need 2.5 years to prosecute Ray Epps. Everything he did was on video. Why wasn't he charged right away? I don't have any idea. I really don't. Maybe the FBI was continuing to let him go uncharged while he cooperated. I don't know the answer to that. I think we're entitled to know the answer to that. And I think that that's suspicious. But I cannot go all Tucker Carlson on this. I cannot let the conclusion I draw dictate my view of all of the new facts that show up. That's like the opposite of the scientific principle. Like, what's your conclusion? Well, government did this. None of those people in the Capitol were guilty of anything. Well, therefore, every new fact that comes in, you're going to put into some sort of a theory, a narrative that allows you to maintain that outcome. I haven't seen it. I'm open-minded to evidence. This, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Doesn't this change your mind? Or do you think, nope, this is proof. Ray Epps is part of it. 303-696-1971. Hey, Janice, you're on 710. What do you think?
Well, I don't condone the people that broke windows and forced their way in. I don't think that was proper. But people that were just unknowingly strolling through thinking they were okay, I can't see prosecuting them like they did. I didn't like that part. But
even for the trespass stuff?
Well, it was unknown whether you were trespassing or not. I can't, it's hard to figure out. Some people didn't really know. But anybody who did damage or forced their way in, I saw people breaking windows.
What do you think they thought they were doing? You got 1 billion people outside the Capitol hanging out, protesting the certification of this thing, letting folks know, hey, we don't want this election stolen. What do you think the people that managed to get past the barriers, past the cops into the Capitol thought they were doing?
I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't speak on it. But I want to say one thing. The day that it happened, I was on my cell phone, pulled up the Senate hearings.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there watching the senators talking and getting ready to discuss the issue, Senator Ted Cruz and the other fellow that was bringing up the issue. And I thought, I really wanted to know what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And then all of this riot came on and everybody got up and left. And I was really disappointed because I wanted to hear what was going on, what they were going to do.
Did you ever hear? Did you ever find out?
No, they ended everything. They just accepted all of those delegates as they were, and that was it.
Janice, does that make you think that something else was going on, that maybe the purpose and timing of this was to interfere with whatever Ted Cruz and whoever else you couldn't remember was going to do?
Well, I kind of think so. After I listened to that interview with the police chief by Tucker, there was so many things that he was cut out of or didn't know about going on there that was kind of strange. And then those two bombings of the two Republican and Democrat headquarters, that's really strange. They've never tracked those people down. What? They can track down unknown people at the riot? But, it doesn't make sense.
This is only an aside, but it sort of feeds into this idea of the narrative. Somebody texted in yesterday when we were talking about the Lauren Boebert thing over at the DCPA and how they had the video of her vaping and groping that dude next to her and all that stuff. And someone texted in, and I thought it was spot on, which is, wait a minute. We can see Congresswoman Boebert. We can find out right away Congresswoman Boebert's been vaping and manhandling her man in that performance in the dark, but we don't know who left the cocaine in the White House. And I'm like, that's a very good point. Isn't that interesting that the DCPA has better coverage than purportedly the White House? Come on.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And I saw Lauren Boebert down here at our gun show the other day. And, I wanted to say, calm down, lady, because you're constantly on video by these people. You got to watch out.
Do you think that the Ray Epps thing, does that change your mind at all, Janice, about what you think happened? Like, do you think he's part of some FBI-driven, I don't know, effort to make January the 6th happen? Or is this guy another defendant?
Well, I don't know. I got to see the evidence. He was encouraging people to go in, but so are other people. So
there's video of him I've seen too, and I can't remember where it was, where after he's encouraging them to go in, and that's true, there is video in there, he's then saying, hey, let's not do this. This isn't right. Let's not do this. What do you think of that?
Well, maybe he figured out that maybe let's not do this, and it's too late.
Yeah, that could be. Janice, thank you as always. I love that you listen from out there in beautiful Walsenburg, and thank you for calling in. Janice's line is open at 303-696-1971. I'm going to get to Dave, and Russ got to do a quick thing for you here, and that is to tell you about our friends at QC Kinetix. These are the folks that have figured out pain and how to make it go away. And if you're in that special sweet spot of humanity where you've got joints that are screaming out for attention, you're either going to ignore it. And that's pretty American, right? That's pretty last generation stuff, to just tough it out. This is just the hand I've been dealt, and I'm not going to let it interfere with my happiness. You don't have to do that anymore. You have options. One of those options is to take a whole bunch of pain pills. Hard pass, no thanks. Another option is you go see the doc. They send you to the orthopedic surgeons. They're rock stars. And they say, hey, we can fix anything when we cut you open and do this, that, and the other. Only 6 to 8 weeks of downtime. And you're like, holy smokes, I don't have 6 to 8 weeks to do nothing. I'm just too active. I got too much life to live. This is the option that you're looking for. It's QC Kinetix. Through their state-of-the-art regenerative medicine techniques, these are the folks that can make the pain go away by using you to fix you. That's the regenerative medicine technique. No downtime. Why would you want for something else? No downtime. All it requires is for you to pick up the phone and grill these people, quiz them. After you go to the website, qckinetics.com, pick up the phone and call them at 303-900-8986. I'm going to give it to you 2 more times. 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986. That's our friends at QC Kinetix. Quiz them, grill them, make them answer your questions. And then when you're done, I'm pretty sure you're going to sign up with them. Hey, listen, Dave and Russ and whoever's calling in on Janice's line at 303-696-1971. We'll get to you when we come back from a break. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. True to my word, we love the callers here at 303-696-1971. Dave, you're on 710. What do you think?
Hey, George, how's it going? Been about 12 years since we were in Iraq at the same time.
Oh, buddy. Great for you to call in, man. Thank you for that.
Good to hear your voice. Hey, no, just in regards to the Epps and the Capitol, the events on January 6th, it's generally seemed to me that it was a crowd that was unsure of whether there was something worth, dare I say, revolting against, who was unfamiliar with what a revolution looks like. As much as people try to keep up with history and identify with the American Revolution, I don't think enough people look outside to see what an event like, say, the Arab Spring in Syria looked like and exactly how poorly that goes. So it just, a lot of people with a lot of intentions and maybe not realizing until it was too late exactly how far that the movement got whipped up.
What's your sense of who whipped it up and how it could happen organically? I mean, you've seen that, but it could also happen because somebody threw a match onto a puddle of gasoline. Who did it, if that's the case, and what role did Ray Epps play in all this, in your mind?
So there were a lot of people, and I think Ray Epps ends up being one of the voices who is unfamiliar with what is a revolution and how it all looks, and was calling for something that he did not completely comprehend. And and even the guys who have been sent to prison. I think that they talk a lot about revolution and the Jefferson quote with the tree of freedom and democracy being fed with the blood of patriots. But, you know, thank goodness we haven't seen anything like that inside the borders of this country since the Civil War. And I am glad that things on January 6th did not go as far as some people initially wished that they would, because that would have been even worse. So I think the way you brought up Occam's razor, George, is really critical, because the burden of proof lies, I think, with the people making the more than normal claims, extra normal claims of conspiracy. Until there is some serious, solid evidence to show conspiracy, then, you know, it's really hard to concur with that. Occam's razor says a crowd gathered with a lot of high emotions. A lot of exhortations were made by multiple parties for trial by combat. You've got to fight for your freedom. They're going to take away your freedom. And, you know, it got more than one match on a puddle of gasoline.
It sounds like, Dave, what you're saying is, and it's similar to what I've said, which is, look, I'm open to the evidence, right? But I can't come to a conclusion and then work backwards and just sort of make everything fit the narrative I want. I need to see it. So I haven't seen the evidence that the election was stolen or that January the 6th was the product of the government thing. Just bring me the evidence of it and how people see the outcome already. It feels like dictates their perception of all the new pieces of evidence, like Ray Epps. I mean, I've got text right here, Dave. There were people are like, hey, they needed 2.5 years to get their story straight. Ray Epps and the FBI. I'm like, do you believe that? I mean, maybe that's true, but that's the conclusion that you can draw on nothing more than the timing, than the other things. What does this portend, in your opinion, for the future? Because it seems to me these conclusions are immutable. That is, it doesn't matter what the evidence turns out to be. They're immutable.
Yeah. Which, you know, like you're saying, starting from a conclusion and working backwards is not necessarily the strongest of positions from which to argue, because you're starting with your conclusion, stating that I know this to be what it is. And then again, still the burden of proof lies upon that person making the claim, rather than gathering your evidence, finding out where that leads you, and then having a claim to make that is fully supported. So until, and you know, thank goodness, you know, there is investigative journalism on both the right and the left who is more than willing to do a lot of digging and dirt slinging towards people on the opposition from either side. Because I think that sort of opposition, that, what do they call it, oppo research, is what will eventually bring out some kind of truth, or at least some kind of evidence.
I am open to pushing on the investigation piece, and we've heard this from even people that I would consider very reasonable on this topic. They're like, I want more information. I want to know the truth. Me too. But until we do, I can't simply conclude this person is good for, or this guy, frankly, and Dave, you've seen this too. We're very good as a government at really just about one thing, and that's making war. And even that, we're not that perfect at it. The idea of being able to suggest that government is somehow good at concocting something like this and managing it thus far without a single defector, or I don't see the government that way. I see the government as teetering on incompetence at all times.
You're speaking my language, George. That's yes. You know, when people start saying that 9/11 was an inside job, my default is to say I think it is a result of incompetence and inability of different government agencies to exchange information and come to conclusions based on said evidence and information. I don't think that there's, what's the saying, never waste a good tragedy, right? Once something has happened, then I think that there are people in positions who are more than willing to take advantage of a good tragedy. But I think the orchestration thereof is something that is just really outside of a large group of people's ability to come together and plan coherently.
Dave, great call. Thanks for calling, buddy. Good to hear your voice again, and great way to finish this segment. Russ and the others filling in on Dave's line at 303-696-1971. We'll keep the conversation going as much as you want to. I wish some of these texters had the guts to call in. Stick around. George Brauchler, George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final hour of the Hump Day show before we give it up to Charlie Kirk at 10, Prager at 11, Gorka at 1, and then live and local with Deb Flora right here from 3 to 4. And then Stephen Tubbs, who I have just been informed is going to come in and do the special shoot with Pete today. That's the first time I think that Stephen has been out of bed before 1 p.m. in a long, long time. It'll be good to see him and see what he looks like. Hopefully he has his shirt on and it's not another one of those pictures he took with Leroy back in the day. Still have that picture, by the way, Stefan, if you're listening. You can picture that haunting you throughout your retirement because that's what's going to happen. It may be my new screensaver. I don't know. Listen, I promised you we'd get to the phones, but I got to reset the topic before we do that. So if you're just listening now, what you know is that Ray Epps, who has been a person that Tucker Carlson and many on the right believe was an FBI informant who in part encouraged the folks at the January 6th Stop the Steal turnout at the Capitol to turn riotous and to trespass the Capitol and to do a whole bunch of horrible things that has led to not only their prosecution and many of them incarceration, but also to ultimately, I think, the indictment of President Donald Trump, at least in that D.C. case. Now, nothing that took place on January the 6th has anything to do with the case down in Miami out of that Mar-a-Lago incident, which I still think that's the strongest prosecution against him. That one feels to me to pose the greatest risk to the DJT. Nonetheless, Ray Epps has been charged. Yes, 2.5 years later. But he's been charged with a misdemeanor of, I think it's disorderly conduct on restricted grounds or words to that effect. And it's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make any difference to anybody. Because even though he's charged, I don't hear a single person saying anything like, well, wait a minute, I thought he was part of a broader conspiracy. I can't imagine the dude being charged if he's part of that broader conspiracy. Instead, this is further proof of it. And legitimate questions too, like why did it take him 2.5 years? That's a great question, Alexa. I don't know. I think that's super suspicious. I want answers to it. I just don't know the answers. But if the conclusion is, hey, 2.5 years, some texters on here, that's long enough for them to get their story straight, them and the FBI. Really? Here's some more cover-ups. Question mark. The government has covered up the truth about what happened with JFK for 60 years. Really? When has our government proved competent to keep any secrets ever about anything? Here's one. The election was stolen and you know it. I don't know it. Because if I did believe it and I was saying otherwise, that'd make me a liar. I got no desire, no interest, no benefit to lying to you on the radio. In fact, my job here would be easier if I drank that same Kool-Aid. It would be easier for me to be the local version of Charlie Kirk and sing the song that everyone in MAGA world wants me to sing. The election was stolen. Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules is proof positive that it was stolen, that Ukraine is full of Nazis and we shouldn't do anything to help them. And all of these prosecutions have no basis. In fact, they're only political and the president's never done it. That would be so much easier for me. Your texts would be so much better. Some of your calls, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But I'm open to the conversation and to the facts. But these aren't facts. You know it was stolen. It's not a fact. Here's another one. I do think Fox and Tucker defamed the guy. He thinks so too. That's why he sued them. Why hasn't anyone else been indicted in the Epstein case? Maxine gave up names. They have the visitor logs. They have text voicemails. They have videos from the complex. Who is the government protecting? Stop drinking the government Kool-Aid. So wait a minute. To not drink the government Kool-Aid, I have to believe the government is involved in covering up something going on with Epstein. They might be. I don't put it past them. I'm sure open to that. I'm not one to just defend the government on all of its decisions, but you got to bring me the evidence. And evidence isn't, well, they haven't done anything. See, if they weren't in on it, they would have done something. Is that the only conclusion? Is that the only reason that could happen? Couldn't be an ongoing investigation. Here's another one. Are you really that naive? Incompetence governments, stupid doesn't equal good. It is about leaving no proof. Oh, so the government's super good at the cover-ups. Inquiring minds read text and don't just hide behind law and proof. hide behind law and proof. That's kind of how the system works, man. And incompetence exudes. They love being called incompetent. Tolerant. Now that's it right there. Is their goal is to be seen as incompetent. They're really freaking geniuses. The government is, unless we don't want them to be. They're so super smart. They've left just enough evidence for really smart people like you to see what they've done wrong. If they can get away with what they're doing, study human nature. You know, I've only been in the game about 28 years. I know I'm a rookie here, but I've been dealing with human nature, both the good and the bad, for a little bit. Not law and proof. Not everything is handed to you on a silver legal proof platter. I'd like anything to be handed to me on a platter of any making. Law isn't exactly competent either. Agreed. More so, who knows who was behind January 6th? Smart ones say today that KKK was. What? Behind January 6th? I don't understand. Who's to say? Hoods on heads. What does that prove? Now you've lost me. All this is a setup for something to get rid of white guy. Like non-loyal Indians. Government is a jealous God. Those who don't love them get their incompetent actions. I'll be honest with you. If it's voice to text, you got marbles in your mouth or something. I can't make out many of the words that you've typed there, but some of the stuff you said is just, to me, it's just incomprehensible. And I know what the words are, but stop looking at law and proof and instead read texts. What? Russ from Denver, you're on 710 KNUS. Russ, what do you think about all this?
I don't know, George. You got to give the FBI credit. I mean, they like to be stupid, act stupid, make us think they're stupid if they're going to do something this twisted and bad. I mean, you say incompetence. How could the government's incompetent? The government's not incompetent. It's controlling the world. It controls people. It controls everything through division, through race, through civil rights instead of constitutional rights. As I mentioned before, they're not stupid and they're not incompetent. They would like us to think they're incompetent, or like you want to preach it that they are, but they're not. And acting stupid is actually a pretty smart thing to do.
They're not acting stupid. I'm just telling you that where else do you point to government and say, look at how really good government is on this issue? What is it? Other than this cover-up, what is it?
There's cover-up, setting people up, civil rights.
Yeah. Hold on. What does that mean, civil rights?
Well, you got to take people apart before you can put them back together in their way. And that's what they like to do. Now,
what do you mean by take them apart?
Well, if you're going to rule in your way, in your tyrannical way, with you being in control, man's nature is to control. So for him to do that, he has to take apart individual people that are controlling their own lives. That's why the government wants to rule. By nature, the government wants to rule. That is what it wants. That is its goal. That is what it does. That is who it is. So to do that, it has to break up everything like races. They put everything in races, civil rights. If they would have just left the constitutional rights alone and let us live by that, we'd all be fine. But they wouldn't be fine.
What does that mean we'd have all been fine? We went to war over slavery, right? I mean, should they have not done that?
We went to war over slavery. That was, a long time ago. And you can get into the reasons for the slavery and the reasons why people didn't like the blacks down in the South, and all that kind of stuff. That all goes towards the division that, I don't want to say CIA, but because they weren't around then, I don't think as much as they are now. But it all, bottom line is they have to take people apart so they to put them back together the way they want to, because they want to be in control.
Who's they?
Like the texter, the texter said, the government is a jealous God.
But the government's made up of people. Who are they?
It's not. It is people, but it's a thought process as well. It is a thing. It's not just people like your neighbors or like your friends.
It is exactly like my neighbors. Huh? It's exactly like my neighbors. People that make up the government are my neighbors.
Well, okay, mate. Oh, you did say that before. You're right. and that's fine. I mean, I know. Neighbors. It doesn't. That's not the point. It's an irrelevant point I'm trying to make. I don't care if their neighbors are, I don't care if they're my neighbors or not. Well, I do, because I got one spying on me. But the bottom line is they want to take up, before you can make something your way and you're in control, you have to break down it's just like domestic violence. When a man wants to control a woman, he has to break her down, constantly beat the hell out of her mentally more than anything, before she looks up to him like the only thing in the world, and she is totally dependent on him. That is what the government likes to do too. It's the same thing. They break down before they can build up. And that's what they do.
How does
January 6th?
Yeah. Going on to the January 6th.
January 6th, civil rights, any of those things, race divisions, all does those things. So they can put it together their way. That's why when I say they took the Constitution out to replace it with civil rights, it's because it put them in control, not the free people in this country in control anymore. But once you do that, then they have control, and that's all they ever wanted.
So you believe firmly that the government was behind January the 6th, and that Ray Epps
I'm not going to say firmly, literally, because then you can say, well, where's the proof?
Even if you don't say firmly, I'm going to ask you, where's the proof?
Well, you can ask all the proof you want. Again, like the text just said before, proof can be manufactured or hidden. These people ain't stupid. Like I said, you say incompetence. I say no, they're not incompetent. They act like they're incompetent. I want you to think they're incompetent, so you don't think
they don't act. They don't think they're incompetent. They don't act incompetent. But Russ, how is it possible that there's a conspiracy so large, so widespread, so long-lasting, 2.5 years, not a single defector from that conspiracy has come forward to say, I know the truth, and let me tell you what we did. Let me tell you my role and what happened. Why not?
What is the truth? I mean, who knows? Again, I don't know who was at that riot. I heard there was a lot of Antifa people there, just as much as there were right-wing conservative Trump supporters. I don't know, literally, and I'm not going to get the proof, and I'm not going to have the proof either, and unless these people talk, and they all got something to lose if they talk.
What if they have nothing to talk about? What if it's exactly what you think it is? I mean, what it's portrayed to be?
You can't. Again, some things you can't prove. You have to. I mean. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. Like I said.
Well, give me an example outside of your faith in the good Lord. Give me something that happened that you can't prove.
That is, again, you're on the proof thing, George. And,
I know it's sort of a big deal to me.
That's fine. Well, the law, again, like the texter said, the law isn't exactly competent either.
Agreed.
So the law and proof. That the stuff that you believe, and so the things you are stressing, like it's either there or it's not there, you can't. You got to have an inquiring mind that's a little bit off of.
But I do, Russ. My inquiring mind makes me ask, what evidence do you have? That's the inquiry I have. But it feels like there's a lot of my gut tells me this.
Well, okay, people do deceptive things all the time. You can't prove it. They're always deceptive. People are born. We're born sinners. Okay, so and you prove everything beyond a reason about literally stick it to the wall and have something you can touch and hold? No,
I don't know about beyond a reasonable doubt, but I'll take something.
Well, take what you can, but you got to understand human nature. Okay, it is human nature to lie and to try to deceive and to get what you want and to get control in your own deceptive ways. And the first thing you want to do.
Do you feel like that applies to Russ? Does that apply to Trump?
What
you just said, that it's human nature to want to try to control everyone and to break people down.
Trump. First of all, Trump tried to get help with that riot, and Pelosi didn't give it to him. I don't know if you've heard that or not.
Hold on.
And to say Trump is
Pelosi?
a controller.
Pelosi didn't give it to him?
The controller. Yeah, that's what Trump said on the I don't want to say it on your radio show. If you want me to, I could. The radio show the other day. Yeah, he was quoted as saying that, and he was interviewed by the guy on the radio. and that he tried to do the defense, and he tried to get even the army, or not army, just whoever you can call in when
National
that kind of
Guard.
stuff happens.
National Guard.
Okay, right. That's what he. Yeah, that's what he quoted on the radio. Saying.
That's been
to
debunked,
say,
man. That's been debunked.
Well, debunked again. Well, obviously, because it wasn't proved. Probably, I don't know. I
think it was the leadership that debunked it. I think it was the leadership. It was people, not Trump. But Russ, I think you've made your point. I appreciate it, man. I would continue. I love talking with you. I would continue to have the phone call, but I got to break away for something real quick. And then the phone lines are full, other than Russ's line, which is open at 303-696-1971. Ben and Mike, I promise I'll get to you here. I've got to do some magic, though, and that magic includes telling you about the real estate market. If you listen in the 7 o'clock hour, I was having a conversation with Gabe from Alpine Planning. And, the Colorado market has seen, it's one of 11 states that has seen housing prices fall over the last year. Just 11 states. That's not probably a great indicator for the economy, but it is an indication of what's going on out there in real estate. And so you're asking yourself, well, wait a minute, does that mean it's a good time for me to buy? Is it a bad time for me to sell? These are tough questions. Interest rates are going to be flat, we think, this month, but everybody I've talked to, especially the Alpine folks, say, I think we got one more hike in our future. Okay, now may be the perfect time to strike. And if you want to get the most dollars for your house and get into that dream house while you can, and man, scarcity is an issue with homes, call up Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team at Keller Williams. Gay is Gaye. That's important because she has a website called gayhasthebuyers.com, and she does. You should be one of them. Let her 14,600 plus people take a look at your house and start whacking away at bids on it so you can get that price up. You can buck that trend in Colorado and then get her on board to help get you the best deal you can on that dream house that you're trying to get into. Give them a call, 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. You can check her out at gayhasthebuyers.com. That's Gaye, Gaye, hasthebuyers.com. I'm debating what to do next here because the phone lines, I want to have the conversation. Ben, you're on 710 KNUS. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah. Hey, George, how's it going?
Well, you've been listening. you know.
This conspiracy stuff is just gobbledygook. I mean, there's so much stuff that's just BS, like that Antifa was running the show, that, cops were letting people in. Like, there's a really good documentary out there called 4 Hours in the Capitol, where they go through and they actually talk with the police officers that were there on site. They talk with a lot of the people that were in the crowd, the rioters that were there. So you see things like where these conspiracy wingnuts go off and like, well, they were opening gates and letting people in and blah, blah, blah. And like when they actually talk with the police officers, what they're going through is like, we recognized that we weren't going to be able to hold these areas. So we opened up certain sections to try to divert the crowd over there because we were trying to get some people out of the building or over into safer areas. And we were trying to distract them and get them over into these other situations. And I mean, that's the reality of what was going on.
Ben, how do you respond to those folks that look out there and say, hey, Epps is on video saying, hey, we need to go take the Capitol, or words to that effect, and that he's there and there are videos of him encouraging these people to do it. And, oh, by the way, it took DOJ 2.5 years to finally charge this guy with a measly misdemeanor. How do you respond to that?
Well, I see a bunch of people that are still getting charged this day, up to this day. I see it in the news like every few days, like someone else is getting charged. It's a massive, huge prosecution that involves thousands of people. So I think it's just the criminal justice system is working a little bit slower than it should. But, I think I don't think he was, if I remember right, he wasn't someone that actually entered the Capitol. So he's probably a little bit lower on the totem pole than some of the other people. He was stirring people up, I think, the night before, if I remember the story right.
At least the day before, whatever that video was, it was before. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the day before. And then during this actual thing, he wasn't going in the Capitol. So, I just think it's the justice system kind of running its wheels slowly.
I am fascinated too by the folks who, and some of the texts bear this out. It's just so obvious to them what's happened. And if I don't see it, and I insist on things like crazy things like evidence or proof, that I'm naive, maybe I'm even part of it. How can I not see what's going on? And it's just fascinating to me that every piece of evidence that might contradict the narrative is either fake or it's further evidence of the conspiracy. I've never come across anything quite like that.
Yeah. I mean, that 4 Hours in the Capitol documentary is really, really good. I suggest some people, like everyone, to go out and watch that. It's called 4 Hours in the Capitol. It was on HBO. And you get to see exactly how violent that whole thing was. You get to see police officers getting crushed in doorways, like how terrible that whole thing actually was, because a lot of people dismiss that and say, well, it wasn't violent. There was nothing bad. And, you get to see like the feces that was strewn on the wall and just stuff like that was despicable. And if, for example, like if that happened at the White House with the BLM riot, like if BLM had stormed the White House and done the same thing, Republicans would be up in arms and going nuts.
Oh, they'd be insisting on heads. There's no doubt about it. I think that this has more to do with the past, potentially future president than it has to do with anything else. I don't think these people really care as much about the folks in January, other than that they were there on behalf of the president in their minds. They were there to try to protect his position in the Oval Office, and they thought that the election was stolen from him. If this was they wouldn't do this for George Bush. Nobody tried to storm the Capitol for a hanging Chad on either side of things. You know what I mean? Like, this is so personality driven about Donald Jesus Trump that it is just, I can't see it ever happening again. And I could have never seen it happening before him. He is just this unique, super powerful cult of personalities guy. And I will fight anyone on that topic. There is just nobody out there that can disabuse me of the fact that this guy is unique, not because he's a superstar, not because he's ethical or credible or loyal. None of those, because none of those things apply to him. He is just an incredible motivator, and it's a cult of personalities thing.
Yeah, it is a cult. Like, nobody on the Democrat side is going to do this thing for Joe Biden. Like, if he loses the election in 2024, it's not going to happen.
Nope.
It's a cult. It's a cult.
There's something.
These people are brainwashed.
Ben, I appreciate the phone call, man. Ben's line is open, 303-696-1971. I know you don't all agree with Ben, and I'm sure based on some of these texts here, you don't agree with me. I'll read this one. There's one that's rather lengthy here, but it begins with, hey, George, thanks for talking about something that actually matters. Too bad you're on the wrong side of it again, typically pushing leftist propaganda. What? One, what's my other leftist propaganda that I push if this is leftist propaganda? Is it that I don't believe the election was stolen or it hasn't been proven to me? That's leftist propaganda? I don't know, man. You folks are so ready to just break out the swords over anything that isn't bending the knee to this guy. It makes me dislike him even more. No person on the planet Earth is worth this kind of dying unloyalty who you don't have a familial relationship with. Nobody. Nobody has since Jesus, right? There is nobody that deserves this kind of loyalty, this kind of fealty, especially when he has shown such little loyalty and fealty to those around him. It makes me detest him when I get this kind of response from people who are just, this is all about Trump. This has nothing to do with the truth. It has nothing to do with justice. It's all about Trump. That's just my opinion. 303-696-1971. Here's another opinion, but this one turns out to be right, and that's the Step Denver folks. They have been out there saving lives.
Take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are.
Government in its appropriate role is the way to go. I really want Mike Johnson, the Denver mayor, I really want him to engage the Step Denver guys in at least a conversation about how they approach things, because they are not about the handout thing, the, hey, no matter what you do, we're here to love you. It's not like that at all. They're like, when you're ready to make the change, Mr. Drug addicted homeless guy, you show up here and we'll make you earn it. We'll get you back on your feet. We'll put you in a place in a multi-year. This isn't a long weekend and you're back out on the streets. This isn't give you anything. It's let you earn things. That system has worked for decades. They have saved thousands of lives, but the only way they can do it is with us. And so I'm going to donate this Chevy Traverse that I've had kicking around since 2011. It's got 8 jillion miles on it, but it turns out these guys don't care. They'll have a hassle-free tow for you. They'll come and they'll get it. They'll clean it up. They'll maximize the tax value for it. and then they're going to turn around, sell this thing, and use that money, and every vehicle is somebody getting entry into that program. Every single vehicle. You can also contribute money, by the way, but the vehicle thing's pretty cool. Give them a call, 303-296-9020. 303-296-9020, or visit stepdenver.org. That's stepdenver.org. Listen, phone line's full. I promise I'm going to get to them. Got to cut away for a break. Love the conversations. I'll get to some of these texts as well. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Listen, a lot of texters and some of the callers here with this crack smoke crazy opinion that somehow Donald Trump ordered 20,000 National Guardsmen in waiting and Nancy Pelosi blocked it. I know a little bit about the National Guard. I've seen pictures. I've read a couple things. Let me tell you how it works. Nancy Pelosi has exactly zero authority over the National Guard. In fact, the National Guard has a commander-in-chief. It ain't the president. It's the governor of each of their states, and in the District of Columbia, it's the mayor, the chief executive there for that area, Muriel Bowser at the time. Now, I'm going to give you some information that's going to disabuse you of stuff. It's always been out there. This isn't super secret information. I found this pretty easy by looking for it. I imagine if you cared, you could too. So they knew that there was going to be some sort of activity going on around the time of this January 6th thing. So rather than 20,000, which is a garbage made up number, there had been 340 National Guardsmen called up and assigned to do mainly traffic control and all that other stuff, because the Guard can do that. The Army cannot because of posse comitatus. Around 2 p.m. when things started to get a little crazier, Muriel Bowser, she was the mayor. She's the one empowered to call up the Guard. She asked for more assistance from the acting defense secretary, using his authority, called up 1,100 members of the DC National Guard. And at the time, they were still using them for traffic control points, metro stations, all this other stuff. And then it started to pick up some more. And by 6 p.m., this is that same undersecretary authorized the mobilization of up to 6,200 other National Guard members from Maryland, Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. Isn't that interesting? So far, nothing about 20,000 of anything, and nothing about Donald Trump, and nothing about Nancy Pelosi, because they don't have anything to do with this. So instead, the DOD was in the role of supporting the Justice Department. They relied on estimates by the Metropolitan Police and the Capitol Hill Police and all those other organizations. Now think about that. When you have this belief that there were 20,000 guardsmen waiting to jump in and help out here, and the president offered them up, something he's not authorized to do unless he federalizes them, and he did not. And Nancy Pelosi, who has no authority over the situation, stopped him from doing it. Now what? And you know where this information came from? Wait for it. The National Guard. The National Guard said this. You don't believe them? They're lying to us about the role they played and the things that their folks did. Now what? All you texters out there, where's the this is so obvious. It's so where is this? 303-696-1971. Mike, you're on 710. Mike, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, George, probably haven't as much government time as you do, but at state, local, and federal level, there is an awful lot of depth and ineptness that carries through across all branches of service and all government agencies. And so to think that he may have mentioned that he would like to have the National Guard, that it's pretty obvious over the last couple of days. Things are ramping up on the 6th of January, and it's going to be obvious it's going to be a big event. I think an awful lot of people sort of smirked and turned their back saying, yeah, you know what? we'll let you handle it in your own way there, Trumper. And so I think you got burned in it a little bit. I don't want to throw out numbers because I'm not one of those guys that dig into that. But I can tell you it even happens at the state and local level. I mean, this guy that turned around and knifed and killed these two people on buses over the 8 or 9 hours that he was free with RTD.
Crazy.
If you look that guy up, the amount of time he spent, it's all there.
I know. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Our system is broken.
It is. It's absolutely broken. And you know my story. I was knifed in the back at a library.
Yep.
And I will tell you, I don't need to go through names because I'd ask you to probably use your bleep button. But second Judicial District, I can give you 5 or 6 names that it is just so easy for people to compartmentalize and say, you know what? My loyalty is to my agency. So when that guy a couple callers ago said you're right. It's the person next door, the person down the street. It's the person that wants a paycheck at the end of the month that realizes the only way I'm going to get paid is to demonstrate loyalty to my organization, go in every day in my clothes and show up and do my job. And that's what they do. And then they compartmentalize it so badly that the justice system is really hurt. It's broke because of it. The cops would like to see it differently. They truly would like to see these people off the street. They say if you pick up 500 people out of the city of Chicago and put them in jail, the crime would drop by 80%. I believe that there are such a small
I do too. Just off of recidivism and the troublemakers, I agree with you, man.
It's unbelievable, you know. And so the system being as broke as it is, and people sort of smirking and saying, you know what, if we do nothing, and nothing is always an option, and we allow this to happen, how is this going to look for us? And is it heavier on the side of the acting president to have suffered whatever he suffered on the 6th versus us appearing to be maybe a little incompetent, not quick enough to respond to the event or whatever? And so it happens at all levels of government, and it's really harmful, and I don't see us getting in a better position. I really do not.
That last statement's the one that kills me. And Mike, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for what you did. Thank you for the call. Thank you for what you've endured that you didn't have to endure. It was just forced on you. But that last statement's the one that kills me. I get it. We're in a tough place right now. It feels a lot like it couldn't get worse. But it sounds like when guys like Mike call in who make a lot of sense to me, I don't think it's going to get any better. That breaks my heart, man. That is the American story, is that, yep, we can fall down, we can trip, we can hit our face on the cement, but we get back up and we keep moving forward. This feels like, no, man, we're down on the ground. I don't think we're getting up off the ground. I mean, that's the part that kills me. A couple texts. Someone said, they're quoting me, I think. Trump didn't ask for the National Guard. Brauchler's a pundit, entertainer, not a newsman. And I texted back, I have never, ever held myself out to be a newsman. And they said, say that on the air for all to hear, ! Well, I'm not gonna. Biden supporters don't have to protest. They have guys like you, that's me, and First Amendment, and working on taking Second Amendment on their side. Taking the Second Amendment? You crack smoke crazy, buddy. I'm a Second Amendment supporter. Hell, I own me some guns. Concealed carry too, by the way. I exercise my rights to the maximum degree. I don't know about you. But Biden has me? What does that even mean? Am I part of the conspiracy too? Am I getting the talking points? Did somebody hack into my text and see that every morning somebody from the White House lets me know what to say and how to say it? These Donald Trump wackos are the reason I'm not a Republican anymore. I refuse to be associated with jobs like them. Yo, Ben, you are the brainwashed one. How many boosters you got, bud? I imagine that's a COVID reference or something like that. I understand the sentiments where it's name calling one worthy. It just doesn't help us advance the cause. What do you mean I read half of a book? There's some more stuff. Hey, George, I don't believe the liberal idea that the storming of the Capitol was an organized attempt to overthrow the election. I don't either. I also don't believe it was an Antifa FBI plot to frame the MAGA people. I don't either. It was a riot of Trump supporters that got out of hand and they stormed the Capitol. It's that simple. That's what I think. That's the Occam's razor, isn't it? That's the Occam's razor piece of this thing. Here, let me give you something else that's super easy. Countertops in your house, kitchen or bathroom. Don't you love the segues? The easiest decision to make is to not beat yourself over the head with all the online deals and all of the advertising that everybody else, there's only one place to go, and it's the Art of Granite with our buddy Mitch Floria. Mitch knows America. Mitch came here on purpose legally, thank you, when he escaped communist Romania under Ceausescu, started a family, started a business. This guy does things the old-fashioned way. He makes you guarantees. He looks you in the eye. He puts his hand in your hand, gets it all done for you that way. He'll make you a promise too, and that is, first off, if you tell him you're a 710 listener, you buy the kitchen countertop package, he'll throw in the bathroom countertop for free. And I presume that applies to the basement. If you're finishing the basement, he'll throw that in for free. But if you only want to do one room, maybe it's the basement, maybe it's the kitchen, he'll throw in the sink for free with the deal. That's on top of the wholesale prices. Who else does stuff like that? Nobody. Go out to a showroom, 6th and Colfax's, check this thing out. When you go in there, just be aware, man, the minute you see the selection followed up by the meeting with Mitch, have the credit card ready because it's coming. You're going to end up inking the deal with him. He's that persuasive, and you're going to be that blown away by the opportunities and the skills. 303-386-5919. 303-386-5919. That rings the phone in his pocket. That's the kind of salesman he is. That's the kind of businessman he is. That's theartofgranite.com, theartofgranite.com. Some of the other texts and phone lines open. 303-696-1971. Had someone drop. This is Joan. Talking points from Billy. I don't even know what that means. What I get my talking points from Billy. I don't know if you listen to the 6 o'clock hour. Billy and I don't agree on everything. And when we don't, we talk about it on the radio. Here's one. So am I. I'm taking for yeah. Somebody said, look, and by the way, you're a righteous man, George. Do you have to repent? Do you need to ask for forgiveness? I don't know a righteous man. I don't expect Donald Trump to be one. Do you? And I said, I need to repent. I'm a sinner. 100%. I'm a sinner. Every damn day I screw up one way or the other, and some big, some not as big, but there's no doubt I am such a flawed person. I'm not holding myself out to be Donald Trump. I'm just, I admit my mistakes. Here's another one. Who the hell would try to take the country and not be armed? Incompetent actors. Who else? Huh? I agree with the other texter. I don't think it was a planned thing to take over the country. I think it was a riot that got out of control. And it was an effort to try to stop the certification process, as if that could do something. There was so much ridiculousness that took place here. But to suggest that it was, and I appreciate Russ. I really enjoy Russ's phone call, because the idea that, well, hey, man, they want you to think they're incompetent. Just think about that. Every piece of evidence that you offer is not evidence of anything other than the conclusion they've already drawn. And the conclusion is, this is a huge cover-up by the FBI. I'm like, well, when else has the government? That's what they want you to think, George, that they're incompetent, that they're incapable of pulling this thing off. I'm sure there's a lot of super secret stuff that goes on that I don't know about, but pulling off something this public, of this scale, with this much scrutiny, really? Not a single defector, not a single disgruntled former employee who shows up to say, let me tell you the memo I got. Let me tell you the meeting we had. Instead, it's all of these made up facts like Donald Trump ordered the national. He did no such thing. That's not me saying it. That's the National Guard saying it. There were 20,000 troops waiting to go, and Pelosi blocked them. There's no such thing. Why do we cling to it? I mean, this is Trump's acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, who said that. It says right here, this is a quote from him. Not from my perspective. I was never given any direction or order or knew of any plans of that nature. That's what the acting Secretary of Defense said. Is he in on it too? Is he a liar too? Man, at what point do you sit back and go, okay, well, my conclusion's right, but that set of facts turns out to be bupkis. Just not true. And so now we have Ray Epps to bring this full circle. Ray Epps. And the answer is, well, it's part of the fix. 2.5 years to get him prosecuted for a misdemeanor. He's obviously part of it. Let's got to cut away for that final break. Happy to take any calls and texts. You got 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, George Show 710 KNUS. Maybe you need some dental work. I don't, but I do know the people to go to if you do. Frankly, for those that have watched this on the camera, on the YouTubes or the Rumble or whatnot, you can see there may be some food. And I know this pisses off Mark Crowley, but I do eat from time to time. I just run out of time during the little breaks, and so I'm jamming an apple here and there, and invariably gets stuck between the wisdom teeth that never got removed and the other ones. It makes me think that within the next month, in fact, within the next few weeks, I'm going to go see our good buddies, Doctors Richter and Snyder at Twin Aspen Dental. I recommend you give them a shot, right? I mean, first off, they're not political people. They're dental people, but the place is so nice, so relaxing, so stress-free, and yet run by experts in the business of making your mouth better. Make your smile even better than it is right now. Give them a call at 303-841-7466, 303-841-7466. You can check them out at twinaspendentalcenter.com. That's all 4 words put together, twinaspendentalcenter.com, or go check them out. Frankly, you don't have to drive to them to know how awesome they are. Go to the website, call, make the appointment, take a break from your own dentist, go see them. And after you do, I'm pretty sure you're going to make the permanent change. That's what I did. That's why they're my dentist. You go check them out. Now, listen, I can't get to all the texts, but some are BLM LGBTQ is designed to break down the country. Is there proof of it? Yes. All over the place, unless you choose not to see it. You see, that's not evidence. It's all there. January 6th was a demonstration that became a riot as a result of agitation. Yeah, okay, I can get there. I have a snake question for Billy. That's going to have to be off air. George, can you please ask Mayor Mike Johnson why he's allowing so many commercial vehicles to park? That's going to have to be for the next time he's on. We'll do that. All mainstream news is leftist propaganda and communist disinformation. Unfortunately, you always hold that line. I'm a useful idiot, they say. There's a bunch more words there. Well, listen, this useful idiot's going to be right back in the saddle starting at 6 o'clock tomorrow. I hope that you join us there. It'll be Billy and I doing more of that useful idiot stuff right here on 710 KNUS.